Hello, and welcome back to the JRB podcast with myself, Ryan Levine, here with Jeff Jones and Bowden Temnick.
Hello.
Hi, it
Hey,
has been a while for various personal reasons, but we are back, and we have a lot of catching up to do. So, first thing I guess on the docket is we have not actually had one since the recent Forbidden Limited list, and not a crazy amount of change, not the most exciting list in the world, but Kashtira Rise Heart Forbidden, right? That's the main takeaway. Um, how did you guys feel about the list in general? Before, I mean, now we've had an event with it, but how did you feel about
hmm.
it? I guess like right when it came out.
I feel like it was very, I don't want to say long time coming. It feels like the appropriate change. Very unexpected. Just from a Konami level, you figure maybe there would be more consistency hits to a deck like Kashtira, not just outright clearing out a Rise Solid. But then we saw it with the super heavy deck as well, where they took away the Link One. And that was also very surprising. So maybe it's just like something we'll see more in the future of like, okay, you've had your fun. We're just removing the big red flag in the format. And yeah, the YCS results are kind of funny when you look at it. And I've seen some people say, "Oh, I wish Arise Hod still existed." People are complaining. That one I think is funnier. But
Yeah, that
yeah,
is pretty
I don't
funny.
know. I think for a list that did so little. We can expect maybe a broader list, in the coming months, and maybe it'll, take up the game a little bit more. Try and shoehorn in some newer stuff from AGOV and maybe the set afterwards, maybe the Fire King deck, who knows? But game seems fine. Game seems healthy.
Yeah, I think this was a kind of a way for them to be like, well, I guess nobody's actually played with any of the cards we've released,
Mm.
since February. I mean, that's not entirely true, obviously. I think Duelist Nexus ended up having a bit more of an impact than I would have imagined, even with the Rise
Hmm.
Heart, like with the Rise Heart still legal. Um, I
Well,
didn't.
let's quickly look over the events leading up to this forbidden list, because what we had post Dune YCS season starts with the 3v3 in Brazil.
Mhm.
And that's won by Pearly, Dragon, and Unchained. And then we see Unchained getting a commanding showing from all of the top players. And then we have, the weekend after we have Vancouver, and Vancouver's finals is literally two Unchained decks, and you know. And then we go from there to YCS Cancun, where the finals is Flunderies and Rescue Ace. But again, like Unchained still making quite a strong showing. And we're
I
seeing Kashtira fall out of favor, like in these three events, which is
so
funny
okay,
when
so
Arise Hot's
yes,
getting
but
banned.
not true for the last one. Kashtira had a big uprise in play rate at in Cancun, and because they were adapting for the Unchained decks, so way more topped there than and did well than the other decks, which is why I think Max ended up doing well in Top Cut because he played against like three Kashtira in Top Cut with Rescue Ace, which is like one of the deck's only good matchups. Um, because you saw Kashtira start to use things like deck lockdown, and there could be only one, and that's what I lost to in the last round against Kashtira playing Unchained, was like there could be only one. Um, so
I
yeah,
haven't looked
but
at a breakdown for Cancun, but just off the top of my head, I feel like they were either even or like Unchained might have edged out ahead, but I could be very wrong.
There were definitely
but
more Kashtira in Cancun than there were in the previous events,
That
yes,
right?
that one's that
Yeah.
one's a definite. That one's for sure. But I feel like we didn't see a Cancun breakdown, but I can maybe try and find something. But yeah, no, I feel like that one is true. I think Unchained did take people by surprise, and it's definitely a deck you can adapt against. But I think it does just have an inherently good Kashtira matchup
so top
without getting all
32
the
of
silver.
Cancun was 25% Kashtira, 21% Unchained, 9%
Okay, sure.
Floowandereeze.
Sure, that's pretty reasonable.
Which I
And
think
then from
Flunder
what
having
we
such a
understand, I think Flunderies actually took out a
Yes,
lot of
of the
the
Unchained
Unchained, which
decks.
is
yeah,
funny.
which
Yeah.
makes sense, right? Because that's a deck
Yeah.
that like that's one
Pretty
that I feel
Like
funny.
like has a good
unless Flunder
matchup.
bricks, it is like a 1% win rate for Unchained.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, that's like pre all of the stuff that people were doing when we get to this, the last weekend that we had. which is under the new list post Arise Heart, and we've seen a lot more respect for the decks like Flunderies. We've seen a lot more respect for the decks like Terelement. Again, Terelement has an inherently good Unchained matchup because it does have the ability to make Abyss Dweller, right? Like that's something we didn't really see before. That's something I actually lost to in Cancun. I played against one of the few tier decks in day 2, and I proceeded to get Dweller turn 1, game 1, and I was just sick.
So I think it's also a lot more than that for Tearlament versus Unchained, where I mean, Unchained deals with things with card effects,
Mm.
and your cards really do not care if they are destroyed or like link summoned with. They just get their effects anyway, right? Um, the only thing that really that
No,
matchup
they
has
don't
going
get their
for it,
effects if they're linked with, but yeah, sure.
the only thing that it really has going for it is going first. I mean, their version of Abyss Dweller is stopping 2 summons with the DDD, right?
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, you can start going like chain link 1, 2, 3 to play around the DDD guy. But yeah, I would definitely say it's more so in the favor of Tearlament by far versus Unchained.
Yeah, just any sort of Dweller deck, but then obviously we get into the layers of like how consistent are these new decks and how many of these decks exist solely for the fact that Arise Heart no longer exists. That's where I'm sort of trying to figure out how Dortmund panned out. It feels like a lot of these lists were just put together because it's like, hey, I don't have to deal with cash anymore. My
Yeah,
deck doesn't have to contain 6
I
copies
feel
of Book
that.
of Moon. You know what I mean? Like,
That's
uh,
something that like I think the Book of Moon, like Eclipse and Book of Moon, I don't think they disappeared entirely because they are pretty good against Pearly, but obviously like
mm.
without Kashtira
Well, Jeff
in the
Jeff has been,
format.
screaming about how Pearly just did terrible this week. Yeah,
Well, yeah,
that's
Jeff.
that's
That
the
is
crazy one.
from literal day one. Jeff has maintained that Pearly is not easy to play, which I think is true.
Oh
And
no, I
every single
agree, but
time it
like
does
just
badly, he's
seeing those
like,
numbers,
everyone's
man.
just bad.
Pearly delves into the other column in top 64.
Yeah,
And
I
that's
saw
top
that.
64. That's like Pearly can afford to have the 2 or 3 losses in Swiss in an event like this, but I think only one X3 top, so maybe that's irrelevant. But
Hmm.
yeah, you figure in a top 64 card, a deck like Pearly can make up for its shortcomings. Like maybe one loss to yourself, one loss to the deck not doing what you want it to be doing.
And
So
I know that like Joshua Schmidt, obviously very good player, he played the deck and he had like a really poor performance. I think he had like 2 or 3 draws or something with the deck, and I think that's pretty crazy and kind of goes to show that even like a really good player, no matter how good they are, there are like still flaws with the deck that make it. I mean, I mean, make it probably not the best to be
I
played.
would like to note just very quickly the really crazy stuff that I was talking about. I don't know if you saw it, Jeff, but some of the Italians were talking in one of the discords, and I peeped their their Pearly list, condemn Dark Lord and Nurse Reficule.
Yes, someone in Josh's chat today on Twitch was like, "Do you wish you played the Condemned Lord for time?" And I was like,
Yep.
"That's
That is
crazy."
wild.
Yeah.
That to search Nurse Reficule is just so funny to me. It just makes pretty have a 2K like swing in life, and that's just so toxic.
For those of you
Um,
who don't remember, I'm pretty sure Nurse Reficul's name got changed to
It
it's
did,
Dark
yeah.
Lord
the
Nurse Reficule or
Fallen
something.
Dark Lord, or no, that's
The
something else.
yeah,
That's a
something
yeah,
like
it is a
that. I don't
dark.
know.
Yeah, now it's a Dark Lord card, but
Yep. So you were able to make the link, which also gains life, by the way.
Yes, it does. I
Um,
think it gains you 500.
500 for each fairy you control.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so you can do some very very messed up stuff and then proceed to end phase, and your opponent now has to not interact with your black cat or something. So you just have these like weird swings in life where maybe they just sit there and it's like, oh, here's condemned Dark Lord. Oh, cool. And that's kind of depressing. The fact that every deck has the option to make a card that will gain life is not fun from a gameplay perspective. But obviously it also comes down to like some of these games do naturally go to time without any unsavory tactics being implemented. I think a lot of these decks do quite a lot And there's also a lot of games that look winnable that maybe aren't necessarily decided, right? That's like the other issue, like knowing when to concede. But some of these games just do seem like they will drag out longer than you give them credit for. Maybe that's like another concern we have with modern Yu-Gi-Oh! So many swingy cards off the top that can extend a game, maybe 5 to 10 minutes in the favor of someone else, which is really annoying. Especially when Tier comes into play, right? We have all these like ridiculous top decks of like Diviner into whatever, into like Mill, into make board, maybe play. I don't know. You have to break that. It's annoying.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think
So
like especially if Tier, because Tier had the most spots in top 64, it did not really
mhm.
convert that well, to the best of my knowledge.
I
Like I don't,
think I think it was the third most played deck, and
yeah.
so it went from the third most played deck to the most played deck
Well,
in
I mean,
Top Cut. So
like,
I'd say that's the
I mean,
conversion is pretty even.
it didn't do well in Top Cut. I mean, like, it didn't, like, not many of them went,
I
but I don't,
think the highest one was top 8 with Gabe
yeah.
Nets, I believe.
Do we look at that sort of like the European Championship slash YCS Niagara format 2022, where we had these sort of unrefined tier decks. Maybe more so for Euros. You have these unrefined tier decks, and then we have obviously the other decks that just coexist in the format. And then you have Rika winning the event because it is, a little bit more refined. The deck is doing what it's meant to do, and maybe it just has an inherently good
I
matchup against
was,
these sort of
I
like
was,
lower end tier decks,
I was about to
which is
say, do
very
we think that Sun Avalon Rika just has the best tournament matchup of all time? Like, just
I feel like
somehow?
maybe when tier is so watered down, it's very
Mm-hmm.
applicable. Like where
Maybe,
we're at
yeah.
currently. Um,
Well, so something I noticed because I had been playing Tier for like the past couple weeks when I could play Yu-Gi-Oh! And I noticed whenever I went second against a sort of combo deck that I just got blown out because that's not a
hmm.
deck that usually uses hand traps, whatever, it's all gas. But if the combo deck sets up, your gas cannot get going. And guess what that deck is? The Rika deck. It's just a basic
Yeah,
combo deck that just shits out everything and makes a really strong board that's like unbeatable. So I would not be surprised if it just has like a good tier matchup when going first. Um, but like if
yeah. I well
other decks
that's
that are more mid
mm.
range going first, tier element can do really well against, but not set up not decks like that, I would assume.
It's also I think like Rika sort of fits that role of it plays so well from like 1 to 2 cards. Obviously, like Loki is usually good enough, but assuming any point of interaction is like a second card usually comes through, and we saw that in a lot of the feature matches. But that deck can also just have the like Dark Ruler, Droplet, whatever. Not saying like they were necessarily playing those cards, but it's able to just integrate those cards quite well, and then just sort of like ignore boards. There's no real FTK deck, so it's like when Tier's ending on Baron, what have you, and like maybe you activate like Dark Ruler, and then the only point of interaction is like Field Spell Shuffler, maybe like a Sulic or something. Then the games can get kind of dicey, and you trade quite well. And like you said with Tier, it's like Tier can't do that because Tier needs every card to be a little bit more functional. And the Rika deck can also do the same thing. Instead of like board breakers, it can just have hand traps and then play off like 2 to 3 cards after just making your turn awful.
Hmm.
Droll Ash can make their way into the Rika deck, stop you, and then they play off Loki. It's like, what are you gonna do? Probably nothing. That's kind of annoying.
I just think it's very I mean, I'm sure most of us who use social media have seen the talk about how it seems to only ever do well over there, like the Rika deck. It
I
whenever
I
it's
can I can say like if you watch those feature matches, so it seems that way. It seems like no one knows what those cards
It is
do there.
crazy. It literally just seems like nobody who enters these events in Europe knows what the Riga cards do. Like, it is baffling.
and
And
yeah,
you'd
like
You
I
can
think
wa-
see the
now
sea
that's
of
where they would
and
disappointment.
know.
Max played against, I think it was Marcus Patel in Top Cut of YCS
Mm.
Cancun, and that was the fastest match I'd ever seen. Max
Mm.
just threw 2 hand traps at him, and he ended his turn both
In
for
maybe the
games.
right places, right?
You want,
Like,
yeah, right. It's
Mhm.
just like you know what to interact with the correct
But
hand traps. Whereas I saw people
mm.
just open up 3 hand traps and just throw them at the cards that just do not matter.
literally throw them in the
And
garbage. Yeah.
yeah, literally, but you might as well just burn them at that point instead of
But it's
using them how
even
you
just
use them.
like it's like minor things as well. Like I'm seeing people open quite well. So I think the top four game was the biggest one for me. I'm watching like a tactics resolve to take the big Hyperion Ixies, whatever it's called.
Hmm.
Like he ranked up and then it just turns into a Zeus. But then like the Zeus never gets activated and a Con remains on field. And the first action in main one
Is it
from
activate
the
spell
Rika player.
attributed or something?
Yes, yeah, quite literally was just that, and I'm like, "Oh, you just don't know." Like, oh,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like he
Yeah.
like, and I was like, man, like that tactics is probably gonna be huge here. Like that's such a good swing, and it's like he's already burned through a good chunk of gas. And it's like, no, like you just
And
have no
and
cards
there's
now. And
even
it's like,
like
oh,
more
okay.
cards than that too, right? Because they could have like the hand trap girl as well. Like if you activate Zeus,
Oh
they
yeah, yeah,
go tribute your Zeus,
definitely,
negate it,
definitely.
and like there's like just be way more cards than that that like make that
Yeah.
Zeus
I,
completely
I think I
irrelevant.
think it was like a very awkward one. It was like the end of the turn was like a pedal coming back from grave, and then a Concon on field. So Princess had already been used. So like end phase Zeus probably gets the most value it can possibly get ever.
Hmm.
Because then we eliminate any like princess in hand, and then like obviously like first action main one like glamour or something to tribute. So it just felt like even after a solid year of this deck existing, people just still don't know what happens here. Like what should we be doing? That's before we even get into the hand trap dimension. It's just like they don't know what the cards do to play through what's already there, which is fair enough. I feel like that deck does do quite a lot, but it doesn't really deviate. And it hasn't deviated over the last year. Like I've seen some funny stuff. I've talked to like a lot of the original Europeans who really love that deck, and they've told me like, hey, like we can do some crazy stuff where it's like Sylvan Aurea add stack our deck for like eradicate a virus, and then like another card lets you draw it, and then you eradicated them, and like it was just like the old Sylvan deck, where they would stack like
Hmm.
emptiness and then upside into it.
Yeah,
And I was
that's
like, oh,
what,
that's like really
because
cool.
Aurea excavates your, like, you tribute a plant and it can excavate your top, like, depending on
Equal
the
to
level
its
of the plant.
level.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
you
so
Yeah,
if you
yeah,
could,
get
so
rid
you
of a
could dig
level
it,
8,
yeah,
you look at top
right?
8. Yeah.
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 And
So
then
you
you
would just do a
can
bunch of stuff
stack
like
any
that.
of the cards from the 8 on top, right? So if you hit Eradicator, then
Mm.
yeah.
But it was just like cool stuff like that, and then you watch the deck play, and I'm like, oh, this is just doing the same thing. You know what I mean? It's like Bengal Mansa,
Yes,
Bengal
it's the same
Antelope.
deck and the same feel that it was a year or two ago or however long ago you could play this
Yeah,
deck.
it's like maybe you should maybe you have to pick up and read those cards, but I feel like
Yeah.
if I respect that deck enough for the fact that it won 2 European championships and a European YCS, I am going to know what to do against it.
I
And
forgot it won two
I
European championships. Oh my
yeah, they
god.
did back to back. Yep.
I literally forgot it won two. Oh my god.
Yeah, it was nice.
That is
They're nice
Wait,
with
crazy.
so
it.
it's won 3 tournaments
Yes,
now
it's won
in Europe?
three.
In Europe,
Yes.
yeah.
This was the
Oh my
We
third.
had
god,
we
I
had
I
we
thought
had
it was
know,
we had
just
right?
Jess, and then
2.
we had Julius. Yeah.
I forgot
Uh-huh.
it won the 2021 championship or 2022 championship. There
Hmm.
was a
Okay,
2021
well,
championship. Yeah, but I forgot it
that
won the 2022 championship. Wow. That's even worse. That's even worse. Oh my god. Ugh. All right. Well, um now that we've had an event with this list, we can look at it all we want to. The next event, there are no events in between now and Age of Overlord, correct? I can't think of any.
no.
No.
Yeah.
There's nothing, and then the first event with Age of Overlord is the weekend that it
Yeah,
Yes.
comes out.
yeah,
So
Mm-hmm.
that would be
which
Indy, and
is
yeah.
The
which is 2.5
21st.
weeks,
Yeah. Yeah.
which I
Yeah.
know Ryan and I are going to. I do not think Bods is going.
Mm-hmm.
I'm contemplating it, but it is quite expensive, and I might not be able to justify it. So we will see.
Perfectly
But I
understandable.
would be very down to play some new stuff. So I did talk to Max about it last night and said maybe we drive from Michigan, but we'll see.
It's like, yeah, it's like a 4.5 hour drive for me. So yeah, we're
Mm.
driving, but yeah.
Yeah, that's pretty good. whole thing, that's like a pretty good range, and that's also one where it's like flying is probably too short to like have it be feasible either, because your flight there would be like what, like an hour and 20 minutes or something.
Yeah, and it'd probably be
Yeah,
like super expensive because who
yeah,
wants to fly there, like
yeah,
or whatever. But yeah,
Yes, we get one
Age of
flight a day to Indianapolis.
yes, yes. But yeah, Age of Overlord, next big set. I've been hype on this set for like I feel like it's been like 6 months.
yeah,
Because when I originally saw it in OCG, I was like, this set's just better than Duelist Nexus, and could not wait for all the cards to come in it. And I think it's going to shake up the game in a big way. There's so many powerful cards that change the way that you build decks,
yeah.
and I don't know. I'm
Should
excited
we
for
go
it.
over a couple of them?
Yeah,
Perhaps. I think the one that I think is the most apparent is definitely SP
I
Little Knight,
I
right?
think I would say there's two, but yes.
Yeah. I think yes. I mean I think there are like 3 or 4 cards in this set specifically that I think are like the big ones, but I think SP Little Knight is one that is
It goes into
probably
every
going to
extra deck.
be the most
It is the
impactful.
new like nightmare
Yeah,
monster. It
it'll be
goes
in
into like
almost everyone.
everything.
Yeah, like any deck that can feasibly make
Link summon.
IP Masquerena, like we'll play this.
Even if not making IP, you still play it.
That's probably true. Yeah.
Because you still like. So I've been playing new for like I quote new format, but
Hmm.
updated format, I guess.
Yeah.
And there are times where you just make that card just because it's an interruption, and it also is a card that lets you play around Nibiru and like Imperm and Valor on your turn, because
Yeah.
it says its generic effect says whenever your opponent activates any card or effect, you can banish 2 monsters on the field, including at least one monster on your field. So if your opponent activates Nibiru, you could just go activate effect, banish 2 of your guys until end phase, and then you dodge Nibiru. Or let's say I want to activate the uh rescue ace guy who sets 4. They can't imperm or Valor it, because if they do, I will chain my guy to make them both leave the field, and then you set 4 and then get them both back at end phase. So it lets you dodge. It lets you dodge effects like super crazy. That effect is like its other effect lets you like banish any card your opponent controls or in their graveyard, and that's great for interruption on your opponent's turn. But to continuously dodge certain effects or make your opponent blink your opponent's monsters and get a monster at the end of the turn again is so valuable that I couldn't believe it when I was playing it. I was like, wow, being able to like make your effects not matter on my turn 1 just felt like super powerful, and it was like I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it, but yeah.
Yeah. It's a card that I think once people play with it, they like for even just a little bit, they will see that this is like a game changing card. Like this is a card that will be on someone's field like more than half of games, like probably even like 2/3 of games that are played, somebody will
Hmm.
have it on their field, and it will be really obnoxious. Now the one that I think is kind of a step below SP Little Knight in terms of like ubiquity, but will be played, and I think this one will take a little longer for people to play it like to its full extent, but I think it's the new like
Dia-
Zeus-esque guy,
oh,
I
I would
think.
really, I was gonna say Diabell Star is the next
Oh,
card
okay.
I thought would.
I mean,
Oh
you're
no, we're
right,
just
yeah.
talking. I think we're just going over like the
But
generic, like
yeah.
low
I,
investment
I mean,
extra deck, right?
yeah, I mean, yeah, sure. I mean, I think that
Believe me,
card is.
I got stuff to say about Diabell Star. I got a couple choice words
So
for
the
that
new
one.
anti Zeus or evil Zeus
Yeah, it literally is just evil. It is
Typhon.
literally just evil Zeus.
Yeah, it's Typhon.
Hmm.
And yeah, he's, I mean, very generic extra guy that you probably all play one of in most decks, but it's not even close on the same power level as Zeus or anything. It's just kind
Definitely
of
not.
it is just kind of there for maybe I'll use its purposes because of how generic it is.
Hmm.
I think that card is gonna be interesting in like the sort of low end control ish decks that we have, where the extra deck is more expendable. Um, it does beg the question though. In a lot of these decks, it's like, why wouldn't you just have additional copies of Little Knight? Maybe. maybe IP Little Knight is such a like it's probably like a lower investment in the grand scheme of things and is probably a little bit more impactful. But I think this deck is sorry, that card is like very, very it's neat in terms of design. It is a fiend, which lets us,
Yeah,
do stuff in Unchained and Labyrinth, which that's always good. They, I guess they put the forethought into that, but then also just like spot removal, right? Like at the end of the turn, we're able to do some stuff in a similar vein to Little Knight after like a Nibiru. Obviously, we can't make it with the token, but yeah, every deck can have the option now to just like slap a dude down at the end of their combo, and it's like probably impactful enough.
right. I mean, it's kind of like I feel it is like it's like a cleaner upper. Like
Yeah.
I tried to break past your board. I'm now going to make this to clear one more card, right?
Mm.
Maybe even
Well, that's
two, because
usually
might even
what a
attack
lot
over
of the games
something.
come to, right? Like that's sort of like
Yeah.
where we're at. You tend to have these game states where it's like you'll have like unicorn picking off a card. Those sort of ones where like you just try and navigate a board efficiently enough, and like maybe we factor in cards like Dark Ruler or Droplet, where it's like you just have these big guys on board. We're trying to pick off a couple cards. Maybe we can't get to Zeus, but oh, you made your board. Now in main two, I'm gonna slap down this guy. I'm gonna clear another card, and that's usually enough. So I think more cards like that are always decent, and I think this one is like it's well designed enough where I don't think it's too game breaking. Like the floodgate effect shouldn't really be relevant. Obviously, like we said, that just exists to contest Zeus itself, which I think is very funny.
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, like I just think this card is very, very well designed, and it'll probably like not be a mainstay, but it's generic enough where I think you can see it in the format, and it's definitely a card you should be playing around to some extent. Obviously, sometimes you just can't at all. But if you identify a game state where you don't have to summon twice, I'm sure you'll have a higher win percentage than you would before, and even if that's just one or two games because it exists, like that's always better than losing those one or two games. So,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of feel that unless your deck uses your entire extra deck for combo purposes, you're probably just going to have this card in your extra deck, like
mm.
99%. Or if like your deck locks you into something that isn't Fiends, this will probably just be your deck.
Oh yeah,
Um,
for sure. Like the fact that you can put this on top of like a Shavara randomly, just like, oh, I activated a Ruha, now I can make this for fun at the end of my like I broke your board, I didn't kill you, I have Caesar something, I'm now summoning this. Like, okay.
so other than that, you want to move on to? Do you want to move on to Diabell Star, Ryan,
Yeah.
or is there another card?
So this is a card that I think everyone is tunneling on the current probably best use for it. And I think they're neglecting the other applications that the card has. So I'm sure a lot of you have seen Diabell Star being played in OCG for its ability
Rescuers.
to provide its ability to provide a level 1 fire monster. Very specific, but um
Which
Diabell
is
Star's
supposed to be
a
used for the Snake Eye deck.
yeah, yes, which is supposed to be for the Snake Eye, which those cards aren't even bad actually,
No,
I don't think.
no,
I think
I
those
think
cards
those
are
cards are
fine.
actually pretty good, and if they get more
Yeah.
cards, I think they'll be even better, and I will make sure to pick up all of them
Yes, that
on
is
day one.
exactly how I feel. I literally feel like these
Mhm.
cards are not great maybe the day the set comes out, but if they get more support in the next set, I think they seem actually like pretty competent. But basically, Diabell Star's level 7 Dark Spellcaster that you can send a card from your field. I think it's face up card from your field. Or this one might just be any card.
No, no, you can send any card
This
from
is
your
any
hand or
card.
field to
Okay.
the
Yeah.
graveyard.
Any card from your field or hand it to the graveyard to summon it. And then on summon, it sets a Sinful
Sinful
Spoils spell
spoils.
or trap directly from your deck. And then, because cards cannot only have 2 effects anymore, if it is sent to the graveyard, if it is sent to the graveyard during your opponent's turn, you can send a card from your field or graveyard, from your field or hand to the graveyard to summon it back as well. So how that's used currently is to set like Sinful Spoil. I think it's just called like Sinful Spoil Snake Eyes, and that card says send a face-up card you control to the graveyard, summon level 1 fire from your deck. So in Rescue Ace, it essentially means you have 1-for-1 that can send any card, not just a monster, which I think a
Mhm.
big flaw I had with 1-for-1 in that deck was you were only able to discard monsters, and you couldn't discard extras of like the quick play spells or the trap cards, which there's a big reason why discarding a trap card is huge, because if you discard a trap card, you can actually use Emergency's Grave Effect to just set it, for free. So
Right.
you essentially don't discard a card if you discard a trap card. You just get that back
Well,
for free.
we should also talk about the fact that this card also lets you draw a card after you play it.
Yes. in addition to all of this, there is a quick play spell called I think it's called Sinful Spoils Hunter Fiend, and its effect is you can add a Diabell Star monster. Currently, the only one in the game that exists is this one.
But if we've learned anything from Elbez and Starfrost, there's
Mhm.
going to
There's
be a
gonna be
ton of
more.
her or something.
Yeah, because allegedly this is the new Albaz
Yeah,
Visa Starfrost
Jerome-
lore, right? This is
Jerome
the
We
did
always
say-
assumed, but Jerome did confirm
Okay,
that.
cool. Cool. Yeah, so this guy's gonna get more support too, and I already think it's very good.
That's funny.
That card, the quick play spell, adds a Diabell Star monster, and then you can
From your
banish
deck
it
or
from your
graveyard,
deck
by
or
the way,
graveyard.
so you can get
Yes.
away with only playing one.
Yes. And then it has a grave effect. You can banish it and then put a Sinful Spoil spell or trap from your graveyard to the bottom of your deck and then draw a card.
Or one
So-
that is banished. Banished
Yes,
or
or puts a banished one back. I forgot it. Yeah. So in this scenario where we have played Diabell Star in our Rescue Ace deck, discard anything, summon it. So draw phase, activate Sinful Spoils Hunter Fiend, because we play 3, obviously, and we've got to play around roll. You summon it, it sets Sinful Spoil Snake Eyes from your deck. You flip Sinful Spoil Snake Eyes. Again, it sets it directly from your deck, so it doesn't trigger draw here. Then
or Ash.
Or Ash, yeah. Then you Sinful Spoil send the Diabell Star, summon Hydrant from your deck, activate Hydrant, get Lifter, yeah, and then you just kind of go from there. This is where you could get Droll, I guess, and then you can't search Emergency, which kind of sucks, but sometimes we just have enough
But then
rescue
if you have
aces.
Prosperity, then you can banish it from graveyard, put the Snake Eyes back, and draw a card. So
Yes. So it also just replaces the card you did. So if you discarded a trap card that Emergency is gonna set from your graveyard, you actually just +1 doing this also. Like you actually just set the card you discarded back to your field and draw a card.
yeah, I mean
So-
you're technically going to +1 anyway because you draw a card to replace the card you discarded, but then also Hydrant's gonna search. So
Yeah.
no matter what, this is
Yeah,
a
it's
net positive
a lot of
in
value.
card advantage. Yeah.
So the other use of Diabell Star that I think is not really being talked about yet is there is the other Sinful Spoils cards that you can set from your deck. The one I think is really good is the Trap card. I think there's 2, but one of them is a weird Snake Eyes card that's relevant. And it's a Trap card that reads, you can send a Diabell Star from your hand or field to the graveyard to target one card on the field and negate it. So you can set it off of Diabell Star, and then you can send Diabell Star to the graveyard on your opponent's turn to negate anything, and it targets a card on the field, so it can target a normal spell or normal trap or whatever. So if they evenly you or they lightning storm you or whatever, you can target it and negate that also. Or you just use it as like imperm on a monster is also an acceptable usage. And then, since it's your opponent's turn, it triggers the effect of Diabell Star to send a card from your field or hand to the graveyard to summon it back. And then that will trigger its effect to set another Sinful Spoils from your deck.
To use for next turn, yeah.
You can get the Hunter Fiend that I mentioned earlier, which is like the Rhoda that can also add back. So you can set that from your deck. Then you either, even if you only play one Diabell Star, if they didn't clear it somehow, you just make Dark, because that's a super easy Link monster to make and will probably be relevant. You just make Dark, then you flip Sinful Spoil Hunter Fiend, add back the Diabell Star, banish Hunter Fiend from your graveyard, put the trap back on the bottom of your deck, and draw a card. So if you just play 3 Sinful Spoil Hunter Fiend, 1 Diabell Star, and 1 of the trap, you have an engine in any deck you want that's essentially 4 Brilliant Fusions and 1 Garnet, like as far as this is concerned. Like the trap is the only card you don't want to draw. all 4 of the other ones are fine.
Mm-hmm.
And for 4 turns in a row, essentially, you can just get a free negation. Like literally 4 turns in a row, you can just get a negation by discarding a card, and then you'll draw a card on the next turn. So you'll discard a card now, and then you'll draw one next turn to replace it, and you can just keep setting it because you can keep putting the one trap back at the bottom of your deck. So I think there are a lot of decks that can use this, and I sort of feel like it could be arguably more relevant now than like Adventure, because that's a lot more restrictive. So I think a
Yeah,
lot more decks
Adventure
can use
also
this.
takes up a lot more spots than this, right? This is
Yes.
less like you can just go like 3-1, one of each or whatever, like 3, and then unless I mean you at a minimum you can go just 3 spell, 1 Diabell Star, 1 trap card.
Yeah. And then if you want like a going second card in your deck, because the trap card's obviously only good going first, and going second, it's not the greatest. You can play the Sinful Spoils spell from Duelist Nexus that pushes an opponent's, or that pushes a monster on the field into the spell and trap card zone. So if you wanted to play a slightly bigger engine, and honestly, Diabell Star is one of those cards where like drawing Diabell Star is not bad. Like
No, not at
it's
all.
the same sort. In this deck, it would be the same as drawing the quick play spell because you're not putting a Sinful Spoils card in your graveyard. So one deck that I've been trying to make this work in, trying is the operative word. I'm not super convinced this is actually going to be good, but it's a dark monster, so I was playing it in Vanquish Soul, and it's just, in Vanquish Soul, a lot of the issues I had with it in its current form is you're drawing all these cards with Heavy Borger, and you're searching all these cards, and then you look at your hand, and it's just like 5 Vanquish Soul monsters, and like they don't do anything. And one thing that I always wanted or always thought about is I was like, I have so many cards that don't do anything. I wish there was like a strong like discard engine that would get me a lot of value in exchange for just discarding excess cards. And this does that. It's just a pretty high value engine that I can just get where once all is said and done, I'm looking at my hand. There's like 2 Mad Loves in it. It's like, well, those are never getting played, so I'll
Yeah.
just discard one and summon him out, get a trap card, and now I have some insulation from some of the blowouts. And funnily enough, since Diabell Star is a spellcaster, if you want to keep playing There Can Be Only One, which we just talked about a little while ago, actually, you can. In one of the games, I was just I just like built this deck and drew a few hands, and it was like my field was 6 monsters that were all different types, and I was like,
Yeah.
this is not okay. But yeah, I'm sure there are many, many, many more really dumb things you could do. Even when you talk about Adventure, and this maybe being like a sort of replacement engine for Adventure, even playing just Diabell Star discard Enchantress
Yes,
is
there are
just
definitely
that is
OCG
like,
decks that use Diabell Star and Enchantress to
yeah.
go crazy combos with synchros because
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you were able to search Jet Synchron,
Yeah,
and
that's
you were
yes. Oh, that's
at,
the other thing that Diabell Star can do is not just getting Rescue Ace Hydrant, it can summon Jet Synchron from your deck. So
yeah.
this card does so much. This is a card that I'm actually like really, really excited for, and I know a month into the set I will hate this card. I know I will despise this card. I will never want to see it again
So yeah,
after
this is the
like
this is the card I'm most
mid-November.
excited for, and I hope I don't feel that way because I
Yeah.
really like this card, and I think it's one of those things that the more kind of time goes on, or like the more sets come out, I feel like this card will just get better. For the obvious reason of it's going to get like more support, but
Hmm.
also you just have like more cards that exist, so you have more options, right? Unless the cards that also come in those sets are just so broken, you would have no reason to ever use this card. But
Yeah.
then we're going into a direction that I'd be very scared to even theorize
Yeah.
would happen. But yeah,
So this is obviously really, really, really preemptive. Like we've not even played with these cards yet, but like if this card gets more support and you can do more and more and more with this Diabell Star card, I think it might be possible that Jet Synchron gets banned again. Like that could be just from the surface level, just like if these cards are everywhere and people make crazy things happen with these cards, I think that would be like maybe one of the first places to look for like how do we rein the power level of this stuff in without hitting the new stuff and letting like the and we can still let like the lore continue. I feel
Hmm.
like Jet Synchron
Yeah.
in like 6
I mean,
months,
it's
it's
just
definitely possible.
5x collateral damage, right?
Yeah,
It's like we
exactly.
don't want to hit this card, we're gonna hit every other card that facilitates it being
Yes.
broken until it becomes an issue and like you just can't do anything and you have to
Yeah,
ban the card itself. But I think we probably won't see that unless something ridiculous does come out. This
I
might
agree.
just be like a little above adventure package level,
So
right? Where
the
we're just
the way the way I would see it, I look at Jet Synchron specifically, where I think Jet Synchron might get a target on its back if the Snake Eyes cards get better support,
yeah,
because
yeah.
those combos, okay, those
Yeah,
that is
all of the
like
Snake Eye
really
combos include Jet
insane.
Synchron.
Yeah, so the Snake Eyes are the like lore intended level 1 fires you're meant to summon off of the Sinful Spoils spell. And one of them just says when this card is summoned, add a level 1 fire from your deck to your hand. So we can just search Jet Synchron. And then one of them just says like on summon a level 1 fire from your graveyard or banished. So you can like get access to Jet Synchron through one of your many ways of doing it. Synchro with it, discard a card, bring it back, synchro with it again, it gets banished, then summon the guy that summons it back from like there are just combos you can do that make Formula Synchron like 3 times because they're all level 1 monsters and they're like you kind of like spam the field with them too. So it is pretty funny. Oh, and then there's and then one of the other Snake Eyes cards is like when it's sent to the graveyard, you reborn 2 level 1 fires.
Oh
So
yes, yeah.
and there are setups where you can have that guy on your field and a formula on your field, and then you make Baron and then trigger that guy. So you trigger that. Oh, he's level 8 also, that one. So you use it on your turn to bring back 2 fires. You make formula, you have another one on your field. Then on your opponent's turn, you formula with him into Baron and then bring 2 fires back. Like it just you do a lot of stuff and it's pretty cool. Right now, I don't think that deck has quite enough going for it. Like there are no that deck. It has way worse like 1 card combos or like 1 card plus a discard. Like Diabellstar itself in that deck doesn't really do that much. It does less than in a Rescue Ace deck. So I don't see that deck really taking off yet. But as we were saying, if this is getting more and more support because it is like the new lore archetype, and we get better Snake Eyes cards in the next set. What's that set? Phantom Nightmare? Is that the set?
Yes.
Yeah. So if we get more Snake Eyes cards in Phantom Nightmare, then that let you sort of like do more off of just one Diabellstar or off of just one, Snake Eyes guy. Then I definitely see those types of Snake Eyes like combo decks, being kind of real, especially when we can unless you have more Age of Overlord stuff, we can segue into Maze of Millennia and talk about
Well,
Bonfire.
the part cards, right? Are just
Yeah,
neglected.
yeah,
This,
because
this,
the other thing that I think kind of makes the Snake Eyes cards better, their level 1 Pyro Fires, is we just got like a week or two ago an announcement that the Maze series is now going to be a recurring thing, which is bizarre. So we have Maze of Millennia coming out, and one of the cards already confirmed in it is Bonfire, which is just a Rhoda, like literal Rhoda, but for power type monsters. So you can search any of the Snake Eyes. You can search the one that's Stratos. You can search the one that summoned itself from the hand if you control a level 1 fire or any fire, I think actually. So that's a card that just in my brief research into how these decks are made, how these decks are built in Japan, I see some amount of copies of this card being played in these decks. So that'll
Uh,
definitely help
Something
out.
else to note about Bonfire is that in the next set after this, the Phantom Nightmare,
Mm-hmm.
the next world premiere deck is a Pyro deck.
Oh, is it?
Mhm.
Yeah, they announced that. So
Oh,
pick up your bonfires in that set because there's going to be tons. There's been so much fire support, and there's going to be even more coming up. Even well,
yeah.
they might not be fire monsters, but they're going to be pyro. And I actually doubt they will be fire monsters. I bet they'll be like some sort of weird pyro monsters that are
Pyro water, probably not that.
yeah,
Are there any
yeah,
pyro waters? I'm gonna check. I can't think of any
uh,
off the top of my head, but
or like a
It's
pyro
funny that
archetype
Jeff
that has like
says Jeff literally said the tagline in the product listing: "Make sure to pick up Maze of Millennia to get your copies of Bonfire, so you'll be ready to try it out when
Are you reading
Photon
it right
matches
now?
demand their
it
boxes." Yeah,
literally
it says
says
that word for word. Yeah.
bonfire. It literally says it's a must for duelists interested in the upcoming new theme from Phantom Nightmare.
That's so
great.
funny.
Or any
It also
duelist
says,
lighting
wait,
up
and
their
now let's read
volcanic
into this.
cards. Ooh.
It says Premiere Pyro theme lights up the field, huh? Light Pyro. Think about it. All right. Anyway,
Oh.
Oh, a light pyro? Yeah, you know what,
That
Bowden,
would
you're
be
probably onto something.
yeah.
it could
Or they'll
be.
like do something like a lot of times they'll just like make an arc like a type and they'll have like an arc so there'll be like pyros and they'll just have like all be different elements or something, right? I
Mm.
mean, you had Sword Soul where they're all different elements and I'm sure there are other archetypes where we're all one type but all at different
Yeah.
attributes.
Okay, I'm just looking up the just all the pyros, and there are some fun ones. There's so you can only search level 4 or lower. Whoa, this can search incantation candle. That's actually crazy. That's actually crazy. That
Oh my
is
god.
that is actually insane. I'm not like memeing. I actually think that is like a ridiculous consistency boost to these
Hmm.
ritual decks. But more importantly, it can search Gemini Garnet. So that's probably the most relevant card, actually. Gemini Garnet is probably the most relevant power monster of all time. So that's yeah.
So something else I want to point out real quick while we're still talking kind of about Snake Eyes and stuff like that is Diabellstar is a level 7 dark spellcaster
Yes.
with 2500 attack and 2000 defense. And
Yes.
the Snake Eyes boss monster is a level 8 dragon with 3000 attack and 2500 defense. So they mirror the constant kind of protagonist and antagonist boss monsters, which makes me think
Yes, that
that
is a good point.
um, normally I would think that in my head when I first saw this, I was like, oh, Snake Eyes might get like one or two more cards, and then Diabellstar will go on a different adventure and meet a new archetype, and a new archetype will
Yeah.
come out. But this makes me think that maybe that might not be the case, or maybe it'll be like the next archetype she meets will also still be like 3000 attack, 2500 or whatever, and
Sure.
that'll just be the common theme to go on, right?
Yeah.
But I think that was something kind of neat is that these both mirror the protagonist antagonist boss monster theme. Um, but other than that,
I do have a greatest hits list for Bonfire pulled up now, if I may,
okay.
of previously. So this is not counting Age of Overlord cards. So Bonfire searches at level 4 or lower. Is it pyro? Is it fire pyro or it's any pyro? Right.
I'm, it's just pyro.
I'm gonna make sure before I
It's just a level 4 lower
before
pyro monster. I have
okay.
it on my
Okay,
yeah.
cool. Good. All right. That is funny. Okay, so it can search Barrier Statue of the Inferno. Fun one. Everyone loves that.
Hmm.
Fire Hand. um let's say this is the Gemini Garnet, as I mentioned. That's my favorite. Incantation Candle. Um Nemesis Flag. I
Yeah,
think
that's a
that is
neat
a
one.
super interesting one. Granted, the best Nemesis monster is currently forbidden, but that is a super interesting. And the second best Nemesis monster, Thunder Dragon Colossus, is also forbidden.
Yes.
But I think that is a super interesting one that I'm like gonna keep my eye on. Prank Kids Lampsies. I think if I said Gemnite Lampsies, I would have ended the. I would have just ended the yeah. Prank Kids Lampsies. That's a funny one also. But again, that best card in that deck is banned. So whatever. And then all the new volcanics that are level 4 or lower. So you can get Rocket, you can get Scattershot, you can get Shell, you can get the new one, Trooper, and Volcanic Rimfire. Volcanic Rimfire is also one that you can summon off of the Diabellstar Sinful Spoils
Yeah, it's a level 1 fire
guys.
monster.
Yeah, so definitely like a lot of options already, and there will only be more because they're going to want to push this card, and we know there's the Snake Eyes cards are coming out, and then we know there's a new Pyro theme coming out in Phantom Nightmare, so definitely going to be one to keep your eye on. I think this card will probably be pretty good. And also Elemental Hero the Heat, or Elemental Hero Heat, the one that gains 200 for every E hero you control. It's not a warrior for some reason; it's a pyro, which is very, very odd. Yeah. And then who
So
could
I
forget
think,
Charcoal and Pachi?
of course, Charcoal and Pachi. Why wouldn't you be able to search that?
You
But
can also summon
yeah,
that from your deck. with
you can
simple
summon that from your deck.
with simple
Yeah.
spoils. You never know. You can Rescue Rabbit 2 Charcoal and Pachis. Rescue Rabbit probably does lower than level 4. It might actually be level 4 only. I don't remember. But anyways, yeah, I definitely think there's a lot of cool stuff. And then one thing that you were telling me about that I will let you explain because I don't because I just didn't know this at all. So I want to let you talk about it. Which is the Armored Xyz cards
Oh,
that are
well,
coming
do I
out.
have to talk about them?
I
Because
mean,
this is
just
gonna make me mad.
briefly, just very briefly, but
Um, so there are 3 Xyz armor monsters that come out in this set,
in
and
Age of
they are
Overlord,
Xyz
right?
monsters. Yes, yeah, Age of Overlord,
Mhm.
and they are pretty generic. There's a rank 3, then a 5, and a 7, and they are kind of like Zodiac monsters where you kind of just overlay them all on top of each other under certain conditions. But the coolest one, when I read it originally, says that you can detach up to 2 materials from it, and then add that many armored Xyz cards with different names from your deck to your hand. And I was like, oh, that's cool. What are these
I
armored
wonder what
Xyz
these
cards?
are. Yeah.
And then I was looking through the set and I could not find them for the life of me. And that is because they are not even in the set. And this card can search absolutely nothing until January. In
Oh man, Blue Eyes
the
Ultimate Dragon Syndrome, my favorite.
yeah, it can search 0 cards until the January set of Maze of
And then Maze of
Millennia.
Millennia
Because
is adding two
two,
two
yeah,
Xyz
it's just
armor. It's a spell and a
spell and a
trap.
trap, yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
Which I think it's because the first time you told me that, the way you said it, you were just like, yep, and this card searches exactly nothing until January. And I was like, Jesus. Like it was just a matter of fact. It was like, yeah, so for 3 months this card has no search targets. I'm like, oh, okay. Like that's pretty neat.
But I think these
Yeah.
cards are all like pretty cool because they're generic and you can just kind of like use their effects and generically rank up onto each other. And they're like part of like the Xyz water deck, which is like also like
Oh
the
yeah,
shark deck.
because there were some of those like full armor Xyz Lancer and stuff. Does
Right.
that
Yeah,
count?
they all kind of work with these two.
Okay.
They
That's pretty
some
neat.
of the full armor cards also say you can overlay these on top of like a water Xyz monster that has no materials. Kind of the
Oh,
same
okay.
thing.
Yeah. What's the other one?
And
Full
Wasn't
armor
wasn't that a thing? I feel
photon
like the most
something.
relevant one had to have been in the True Draco extra deck. I'm pretty sure they played one of the lances, right?
maybe I
Um
don't remember because I never played that deck.
we played it in, oh god, what is it called? We played it in Eldritch.
Mm.
Well, I'm gonna find it. I know this was one of like the super obscure ones that like came out, and then like it came out in Eternity Code, and like Assault and I played it because we found some really super niche use for it, and it was whatever. Valiant Shark Lancer. Maybe it isn't even a full
Mm.
armored one. Oh no, and then you could put, and there's something you put over top of it. Was it Ragna
Yeah, so it's
Zero?
Gaia
There-
Dragon
Was
Thunder
it
Chopper.
Ragna
Yeah,
Zero you put on top of it? No,
There's
not
like
not not Ragna Zero. Oh my god, what is this card called? This is a card that people played in Monarch and they swore it was insane.
was
Full
it like
armored Crystal Zero Lancer.
I was
That
gonna
one.
say is it Crystal Zero because
Full,
like
yeah.
there's number 94 Crystal Zero and I'm pretty sure you rank up on top of it as well.
Yes, yes. So the reason was, I remember
that was a
now.
True Draco card,
So it
by
was
the way.
full no, so it was full armored Crystal
It
Zero
takes two.
Lancer, and then
Is that the level
two
the
level
rank
5
6?
waters. Yeah. So
Yeah.
the rank 6 goes on top of Crystal Zero. And the reason I was so happy about the shark card in Eldritch is at the time the only two generic water exceeds were Freezer Dawn and
Yes.
this. And Freezer Dawn does not have an effect when you summon it. So this one actually like did something. It could just like pop a monster, and then you could make it Crystal Zero Lancer, and it was just, it was technically superior to Freezer Dawn because it actually could do something. And it was the only other rank 5 water that had generic materials. I remember, yeah. So full armor Crystal Zero Lancer. I don't know if full armor Crystal Zero Lancer interacts with these new Armored Exceeds cards, but I do remember these
I
cards have seen
mean,
play.
it does because you can just overlay. It says it takes a rank 5 water exceeds monster you control, and they have a rank 5 water exceeds monster. So if for some
Okay.
reason you want to overlay on top of
Oh,
that, you
okay.
can.
So you would put Crystal Zero on top of the Armored Exceeds. So you could like start putting the Armored Exceeds on top of the other Armored Exceeds, search 2, then
And
put
then
full
use
armor Crystal Zero on top of it.
on top of the 5
Okay,
instead of
got
going
it.
instead of going
Yeah,
into
that's
the other
not. That
guy. Yeah.
seems like if you played this deck, you'd probably put a Crystal Zero Lancer in your, because you can make it, and it's like okay, it
Yeah.
like negates stuff. Like it's fine. It's an inoffensive card that has a niche summoning requirement that your deck can technically fulfill. If anything, you just make it and then you attack and you put Zeus over, Crystal Zero Lancer, I guess. Like if you
Yeah,
really.
and then some of these other like armored cards came in like Legendary Duelist.
Mhm.
Um and
Yes.
they had the water one, the really bad one.
Full armor Shark Lancer.
Full armored Black Ray Lancer, which it takes 3
Yes.
level 4 water monsters or a rank 3 water exceeds monster. And it says if it would be like destroyed by battle or card effect, you detach materials instead. When it destroys a monster by battle, you can target a spell or trap on the field and destroy that target.
Wow,
But
that card is awful.
yeah, it's real bad.
I
It's not
think
great.
the Galaxy Eyes one we've played before. Galaxy Eyes Full Armor Photon Dragon. We played that card in well, I mean any ring egg that can play, but the last time I remember playing is we played it in Mech Knights, I think. Right? Galaxy Eyes Full
Uh,
Armor Photon Dragon. I don't even know if this is even applicable to this deck, but that's the last time I played a card with, well, one of the last times I played a card with a full armor in its name. But yeah, so these cards are pretty interesting. Except like I've seen, I think it's funny, like maybe an hour after you telling me about these cards, I was just looking at Age of Overlord like OCG videos or whatever, and in Japan, these cards, the Maze of Millennia equivalent set, it was called something different there, came out before Age of Overlord.
yes.
So, so I was watching a Horus deck, which those are some other Age of Overlord cards.
I
Were
kept trying to
yeah,
talk about this because they're the next more generic, but you immediately moved to Xyz
yeah. I'm
armor. So
sorry. Yeah,
I
sorry.
know. I brought it up too. He was like, "Yeah, we'll talk about Maze of Millennia." I'm like, "It's about the card, right?"
But the Horus cards need discards, and I just watched him make the full armor guy detach 2, search 2 Xyz armors. I'm like, oh, what is he gonna do with these? And then he just goes first sarcophagus, discard, discard, discard. I'm like, oh, that's sure.
yeah,
Like, all right.
that makes sense because also the after you search 2, the next guy you rank up into, oh my god, there's a cat. The what's his name? What is this monster? Full armor Dark Knight Lancer.
Hmm.
Um, says that you can target the Xyz cards in your graveyard and add them to your hand. So after you discard them, you can just add them back.
Oh, sure.
And then I think one of them has like a graveyard effect also that like
Hmm.
equips it to your guy. So it's like beneficial to like get them into the graveyard or discard them
Hmm.
because you just get them back basically.
Yeah. So he essentially, because he made this full armor guy that just like searched 2, he just got like every Horus card. Like I was looking at it, and this is one of those, like, it was one of these videos where they were speaking Japanese, and I understand it enough that I sort of could follow it, but obviously didn't know it was actually happening.
I love them so
And
much.
they
It's
had a
so
little
wholesome.
like,
It's like I don't understand Japanese, but I understand Yu-Gi-Oh.
yeah.
Mhm.
And they had like a visual for how many cards were in his hand, and it was just so funny. After he added back the Armored Xyz guys, like made Giant Trainer, drew 3, it was literally like he had like 3 Xyz monsters, 4 back row, and still had like 5 in hand. I'm like, what is happening? Like, what is he doing? And he was just playing a bunch of floodgates in the Horus deck and was just drawing floodgates with his giant trainer. And I was like, wow,
Yeah,
this deck looks
and
really
that's something
innocuous.
about the Horus deck, which I think you see a lot more Diabell Star shenanigans in Japan than you see the Horus stuff. And I think it might at some point be the opposite here, because in Japan, if you want to use the Horus cards, you have to let your opponent draw like 3 cards off Maxi.
Yeah,
Here,
3 or 4,
you
yeah.
yeah, you don't have to do that. You just get to summon 3, 4, 5 monsters, and your opponent can't do anything about it. So you're gonna draw 3 cards, or set up some negates, or zombie vampire your opponent, and that's all. That's all good. You don't got to worry about Maxi. So I have a feeling that you will see much more uh, from the Horus cards here than you do
Yeah,
in
where
Japan.
Summon Dive All Star Set Trap is it does not start a chain. Also,
It does not
yeah.
start a
So
chain.
Dive
You
All Star
can't.
does not start a
Yes.
chain. So if it's just your first action, they don't even get a draw off Maxi if they didn't preemptively activate it. So
Right.
definitely feel you on that one. And the Horus cards are getting new cards in Phantom Nightmare. So this is when I was reading them. I remember when the new Horus cards got revealed. I remember looking at. I don't think I quite knew what they did. And I remember I had a thought in my head. I remember reading the monster for Phantom Nightmare and going, "Oh my god, this card is so good." And
Mm-hmm.
I think I just like misread it multiple times. Because after I looked at all the Age of Overlord cards and I had an actual understanding of what the Horus cards did, I read the one from Phantom Nightmare like 30 times and it was like this card is awful. What did I think was good about this monster? The field spell is very good. But I was
Yes.
looking at
Yes.
this monster and I literally was like, what did I think was good about this? Like, what line of text could I possibly have misinterpreted to think this card was great? I just couldn't figure it out.
So I know what it is, because when I first read this
Mm-hmm.
card, I thought this card is broken also,
Yeah.
and it was mainly because
Was it
it
just mistranslated and we just read
yeah,
and we read a different
yeah,
card? Is that what happened?
the first thing I read was, if you control like a Horus or a King Sarcophagus, you basically get to send one card in the field to the graveyard no matter what. And its effect instead is you need to control both. Um,
Oh,
and while you normally you would control both, I can imagine there are some situations where, like, if you
they
will
interrupt
not be
you and you have to
you will
discard an
not be
extra card and
controlling
it's
both.
like it's a whole thing, yeah.
Um, but I still think it's a possibility that you play just one of this card.
Sure.
Because I mean, it still says, like, if the King Sarcophagus or a Horus monster leaves the field, you get to special summon it, and then I thought it came back from the graveyard like the other ones. Never mind.
I thought it came
Uh,
back from the graveyard when that happened too, and then I read it and I was like, this summons from your hand. This card sucks. Why did I think
hmm.
this card was good? I
Okay, so
I
it's just the field spell that's
I
broken.
feel like we must have read a mistranslation. We must have.
Maybe.
If we
Yeah.
both
Okay.
had the idea this card was broken and then both read it just now and said this card doesn't do anything, I feel like we had to have read a mistranslation of it. Like there's no way. There's
Yeah.
no way that
No.
we both got like that we both convinced ourselves this unplayable card was secretly broken.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Um.
Maybe you play one, I don't know. But
Interesting. You might play one, but I think you definitely put the field spell, because the
the
field
field
spell
spell's
gets you
super nice.
everything.
Field spell's super
So
nice. I like that card a lot. That
yes.
card's insane. Yeah. Um,
Uh,
I think that cover. Last card from Maids of Millennia. Transaction rollback.
Oh
That
yeah,
card is
big fan of that card.
probably good.
Well, big fan of that card, but I feel like that card will just be used for
It will
evil.
be.
But
That's how I feel about many cards. I go, wow, this card is cool, but it will be used exclusively for evil.
yeah, it basically just lets you copy a trap card.
I can't wait to dimensional
And
barrier my opponent 17 times in a row.
Well, it's
yes,
not even like a D barrier prog. Like you can just like have Beatrice decks that dump trap, dump rollback, and then proceed to destroy you. Make them the
Yes.
Mayakashi trap.
Oh
So
yes.
yeah,
it's a literal.
I
It's a
remember
literal
that
turn
one
skip.
is. I remember that one is crazy
Mm-hmm.
because you don't have to pay the
The thing is,
cost, right?
it sort of fell. Like, did anything get hit in Japan to like make that deck like any of the rollback stuff worse, or am I missing
Not
something? Did
that
they
I
ban
No.
know
Beatrice?
of.
No,
No, they did not ban
Japan just can't
Beatrice.
make Beatrice because they get max seed when they try to summon level 6 monsters.
Sure, sure. Because
And
that was like a
and
hot thing for
Japan.
like a month. The OCG people were literally screaming that the world was ending, and now I just look at every list and none of them play it, and I'm just like,
Well,
like obviously
because
like Lab will play it, and that will be
in
it.
Japan they have one mag, which we also have. Then they have
Hmm.
one Dru's Worm and one Baldrake, and I think maybe even
No, but
one Lubellion.
okay, no, I get that, but I'm like a lot of these decks can now just like poop out Beatrice for no reason. Like Unchained can do it without being
Oh,
fiend
Unchained
locked.
can do
Like
it, yeah, for sure.
yeah,
No, it can't. I mean, you're gonna be locked into
yes,
fiends.
no,
You
it
just don't
can.
summon it by its own effect,
You summon
right?
Shibara from deck.
Then
Any
you
of the
just
Shyama puppet guys summons a Shibara from deck, and you're not fiend locked.
yeah,
Shibara's
it's
never
only if it's
locked
by
if
its
you
own
summon it
effect.
from
I
hand.
thought
Wait,
Yeah.
what?
it only locks into fiends if you summon it by its own effect.
Mm-hmm.
If you summon it by a different Unchained effect, you're not locking the
Jesse
fiends.
played Beatrice at the YCS to dump Banshee in his Unchained deck.
What?
One.
Uh, what?
What do you mean?
I am just so confused. How are you summoning Beatrice?
If you don't use a Ruha to start and you open like the basic combo, when you get to 2/6s, you make Beatrice instead of a Caesar, and you're not locked because you're never summoning a Shavara from your hand. You just never summon a Ruha from your hand, and that makes Beatrice. So this deck can facilitate rollback
What
plus
are you
time.
destroying your stuff with without a Ruha or Shavara?
Hmm? Like tour guides like full combo, and then
Right?
if you use Shabara to start your combo, you just link it away for Yama, and then when you get to
Mm-hmm.
2 bodies on board, you have Sarama and Thing. It's like the basic combo when you get to 2/6s. You never have the Shabara you start with if you start with Shabara. The only time you get stopped here is if you're a Ruha. But you can just like a Ruha trap is the only thing that stops you
Mm-hmm.
from doing it. Yeah.
So it's just if you don't use a Ruha, you can do it. You just make Beatrice.
Pretty much. You make Beatrice and you can do the rollback stuff, but currently you can do it and dump Banshee and then Zombie World. But obviously that's just like there's like layers to it. But post Maze, if this deck is still viable, it wouldn't surprise me if against like the fusion decks we just like double dump with Beatrice into like barrier or something. You know what I mean? But
I
like at
mean,
Yeah.
that point, like
not even that, but you can also just like I mean, I feel like just tier limit does this so much better because not only can you just dump them with Beatrice, but
Just
you're
mill
milling like
them. You can just
15
mill.
cards.
Yeah, you can just
oh
mill
no,
transaction rollback.
I agree with that, but I'm saying like in
Well,
terms of decks
well,
that can
no,
just make
well,
Beatrice,
now
right?
I'm just saying I'm pissed thinking about it because I think already Tearlament can be super annoying to play against whenever
Mm,
they hit millers. So now they have like this extra option of instead of like Banshee Zombie World, it's like transaction rollback and super dumb trap that skips your turn.
mm-hmm.
And
It's very funny.
and
It's
now
very annoying.
now I want to edit this out of the podcast so we don't talk about it.
No, we can if you want, but I feel like people should know it anyway. It's
Yeah,
fine.
I've. I will say at this point, I'm not even like super tuned into what everybody's talking about, and I was pretty sure I've heard this brought up before. So like when this
Mhm.
card got announced, so it's fine. But yeah, that's another just card that maybe is gonna be a little obnoxious. We'll see. As
Well,
Bowden said,
it's so far away.
yeah,
And
it's January. Oh, it's not that far away,
I
but
feel like
yes.
Konami USA, well, not USA, but Konami TCG has been pretty on the ball with a lot of like the hits for the really degenerate stuff. It's not to say that they haven't like solved a lot of like the degen stuff that's happening now, but I'm saying like the crazy stuff.
Yeah.
Like
Mm,
the super heavy hit I think was really good, and like we could just see something similar if they think this just isn't, you know, appropriate. We could just see a Beatrice ban and that solves a lot of the issues, right?
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
think that card
yeah,
should
I
get. I
brought that up
think
today. I
if
think
Curious is,
Beatrice should also be banned.
yeah,
Yes.
if Curious is banned, Bandy
Yeah.
should be banned. I
Agree.
I feel
I
like
agree.
I feel like her time has come. You know, it's been yeah, and this is just another reason. And you know, if this
It's
is
weird because I feel like they always just sort of like okay with hitting monsters that do the crazy stuff, but never want to hit to the card. So I did not talk earlier when you guys talked about the Forbidden List
mhm.
Mm.
because I was going to go on a rant on how, yeah, it's cool that they hit this stuff, but
But
go and watch. feature matches from all the YCSs and nationals and stuff like that, and whatever WCQ,
Yeah.
and tell me how many of them were decided
Eradicator,
by Eradicator or
barrier,
Dimensional Barrier, Anti-Spill
anti-spell.
Fragrance,
Oh no no
all
no!
these
Yeah.
Like
cards.
I
And
I I agree. I agree with that. I think
I
those are
know that
very
you
still.
agree with
I
it. I'm telling everyone else who's listening that they're like so okay with hitting like the monsters that do the crazy stuff, but
Hmm.
they'll never touch these other cards, and it
I
really pisses me off.
I want anti-spell
I
banned so
cannot figure
badly.
out how we came from a world where so what we had let's I want to look at the virus cause just very quickly. And you guys can remember this, right? I'm pretty sure Jeff can definitely remember this. Remember when like Deck Devi was just at 1, Eradicator was just at
I
1.
don't think
Like these were all
Deck
things
Devi
that
was
happened.
I
at
don't.
one. Eradicator was at one for a long time. I don't think Deck Devi was
I
ever at
swear
one.
Deck Devi was at 1 at one
It was
point. I
at
swear it was at 2
I,
at one point.
I feel like it might have
2.
been at 2.
I might not have.
I
If it
remember
was
being
at
at
one,
2, but I can't
I
remember.
don't think I play. If it was ever at one, I don't think I was playing at the time. I remember it being at 2. I think. I do not remember it being at 1. But
So like but what
I don't know.
we've come from the point of like the game being so fair, and just having cards like this that are swingy, like when they resolve, if your hand literally reads my monster has less than 1500 for Deck Devi, like
I
your
lose
cards
the
disappear.
game.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Yeah, like if you played when Crush Card was legal, it was like pretty similar, but there was
Yeah.
like some like depth or dimension to it because the game didn't require you to play all of these engine cards. You know what I mean? Like decks would have multiple copies of Rhoda, and there was just like extra deck utility, right? So there was some like layers to it, and these cards were at 1 probably didn't have to exist, and like obviously
Yeah,
like Crush
alright,
Card
so just so
doesn't
you can
exist
feel
now.
validated, Deck Dev was at 1 and looks to like 2005.
Okay, good. All right, thank you. I was looking it up and I couldn't find it. Um, but yeah, so like we came from a point in the game where I feel like it was probably easy to play around these virus cards then, but like it would limit deck building and design, and like obviously like a deck that can turbo out to like Crush Code or something dumb is going to be better than
And
your
then
big monster
sometimes you
decks
just
that they
draw
want
all
you
your
to play.
monsters that are big and lose. Yeah,
Exactly,
like,
exactly.
but not
But
as
then like
often.
we had Eradicator, which was at 1, right? When it was, I would like to argue it was borderline unplayable for a significant
Yes,
period of time,
I agree.
right?
Yeah.
And now it is just very easy to resolve in every deck because of how the extra deck works, and it is at
Well,
3.
they also just created cards that let you search it from your
Cheat it
deck,
out.
so you
We
Yeah,
only
yeah,
have
have
no,
to
Trap
play
exactly.
one
Trick.
copy
That's
We
now.
have Trap
that's
Trap
Track.
where
Trick
it's
and Trap Track.
Yeah.
that's where it's scary, and I don't understand
Oh,
where
I'm sorry,
where the
and
logic
Thrust.
left.
If they hand trap you,
And
you can
Yeah,
just
Thrust.
sure.
thrust into it, yes.
Yeah, that too.
But like
That's another
where does
card.
that logic go? Why did we think it was so good that it had to be at 1 all of those years prior, and then here we are now when the game is probably at its at its
And
fastest,
now it's at
and we have decks
11.
that can facilitate like yeah exactly like lab can just like eradicate a turn 1, and it doesn't make sense to me that that's the logic that they're applying, because it's like, oh, you guys were pretty on the money. It's like, yeah, you put it at 1. It's like it probably shouldn't exist, but you put it at 1, right? Sure. In a game where we have to draw it, you put this card at 1, and it is not going to come up as often. In a game where I can cheat it out, this card is now at 3. Like, where? Why now? Why are you doing this?
They did have the
Yes.
foresight to
Yeah.
ban. I will say for all of whatever they have or haven't done, they did have the foresight to ban a point of the Red Lotus when Thrust came out, and for that I am eternally grateful because
Oh
I
no, like
cannot fathom
I like that. I
that
think
card
that is
being.
like a definite big one for sure.
I think if my opponent thrusted into a point of the Red Lotus, I would never play again.
Yeah, with a Rise Heart on the field.
I
and
would
then we
literally
never
never.
got
I
the
would
card back.
literally
Yeah,
never
yeah.
play again if that ever happened to me.
Mhm.
So, I'm glad I never had to
Like
live
yeah, like
through it.
those are the ones that I look at though. But it's like, if you think a pointer is that much of a problem, it's like, how can you let ERAD be legal?
Yes.
Right.
Like Jeff is
Yes,
right. Like
exactly.
they are not hitting like the crazy cards that people will always say. It's like, these aren't cards that are super duper broken, which is a lie. Like they're very broken, and it's because they have this very like selective like memory of like, oh yeah, I mean like you have to draw it. It's like, yeah, that's every card. Or you cheat it out, and then that card shouldn't exist anyway. If you're able to like access this card without drawing it, it should probably be banned. But if you draw it and resolve it and it wins you the game, it should also be banned. And that's like, it just doesn't make sense. And that's, yeah, okay. 2 steps forward, 1 step back on Konami's end. Honestly,
Yeah.
I'll agree with that.
But maybe transaction rollback is the card that gets all these dumb cards banned. It's one of those things where, like, one thing I will say is that we were talking about how, maybe banning branded expulsion isn't enough because of Sanctifier Dragon, yada yada yada, and it is possible to get gimmick puppeted still. In fact, Jesse got gimmick puppeted in Top Cup.
I got
but
gimmick puppeted at Cancun as well.
I think I will say the frequency of that happening has been diminished by such a wide margin.
But I would like to point out, I don't think it's because it's harder to do.
It is harder to do. It is.
It isn't.
It's really just kind of like the same.
You have fewer things backing it up now, which is
identical.
Not great, but it's fine. Like, yes, you can gimmick puppet with the same consistency, but you have fewer things backing it up, and it can actually
So like, if anything, it might actually just be better now with the Sanctifier because you are able to do a lost like a play with lost sub, and they can never interact with you when you gimmick puppet them.
What?
Like, so before with the expulsion stuff, there was actually an opening, but now with Sanctifier, if you just like prioritize that and you have lost sub, you are able to fuse it on your opponent's turn and then gimmick puppet them in the same window where lost is giving you protection. And
how do you fuse it on your opponent? What card do you do that with? What card are you? What do you mean? What do you mean you're fusing it on your? You're fusing Sanctifier Dragon on your opponent's turn?
No. So, don't worry. This is gonna get
sure.
tricky. But yes, you can. But at the same time, you can also just like proc a fusion and then like activate a quick effect, which is Sanctifier in the lost window, and like nothing matters, right? But I'm just saying, like, obviously expulsion shouldn't exist, Sanctifier shouldn't exist, but it is equally as easy now to do it. I think the reason why you don't hear people complain about it as much is because there's all these other fusion decks that exist. They're all losing to D-Barrier, and people would rather just do the Chimera stuff and get a guaranteed hand rip.
Which I don't even think that those cards are that good. I truly think those cards are like, I don't understand why people would rather do that than gimmick puppet if it's as easy as
I also don't understand.
But I do understand because I played the deck and no one else has, and it's simply because that if you get Branded Fusion Ash Blossomed, you don't have a play 90% of the time, whereas with the Chimera deck, you actually do. So it's the difference between playing and not playing against one of the most commonly used cards. And the reason why I don't think that you see much success with the branded deck in a pure essence, besides that, is the fact that it's not that it's like any worse of a deck in itself, but it's the decks right now that are played that inherently are able to counter that strategy or just do outright better in a tournament because of that. Because when you're playing the Sanctifier stuff, you're basically hinging your Branded Fusion always resolving.
I also think the Despia deck itself, it does have some depth to it. I think it is a pretty difficult deck to pilot into interaction, especially like Ash on Branded Fusion. Like, you do have to utilize all your cards pretty efficiently, and then you have to know like what you should be doing to be able to still gimmick puppet your opponent. And I see a lot of people like not knowing what that is. So no, there's also that. I think a lot of the what is it? A lot of like the investment for Despia was just too much for a lot of people. When we started, getting deep into combo territory, and they just turned it into the Chimera deck now, and that just does a simple thing every single time and does it off one card with no issue. So, whereas like resolving Branded Fusion in the Despia deck is not actually that crazy anymore. Like, it's crazy.
Okay, I
but
disagree
I don't
with
think
that. I think that's the only time the deck is crazy. Is just Branded Fusion resolves, you just do whatever you want.
Oh no, for sure. But it's like, to get to like the ideal end board, it's like everything sort of has to do something, and that's the other issue with Despia itself. Like, when you lose the roll, I think you are probably way further behind, because your non-engine.
Yes, I do. I think I do agree with that, especially when it's like
non-existent, right? Every card has to function.
Yeah,
you're opening these hands that are all cards that tend to do the same thing. But when you're playing and it resolves, like, it's amazing, right? Like, you are going to do what you want to do.
Right.
It,
And with the
like
Chimera
turn
deck, when
one.
you're going second, you can start playing, and when they interact with you, you just like chain Chimera Fusion and start
Yeah, no,
playing that
exactly. And
way.
you also get to play like a reasonable amount of non-engine, right? Because your deck is literally, it's like a good chunk of 3-ofs, but it's not like cards.
You
They're all cards that
absolutely
tend to
can
do the
fit
same thing.
9 hand traps in that deck if you
Yeah,
wanted
yeah.
to,
Yeah.
or like 6 hand traps and 3 other going second cards.
So the Chimera deck just tends to be a little bit more reasonable, and I think for like the average player, the Chimera deck is a little more pick up and play friendly in that sense, right? Like we are able to go second more often. We're still weak to D barrier, but like not to
I
the
mean,
same extent, I
I
guess.
feel like that deck is more of just like if you know what Yu-Gi-Oh cards do, you can play that one. Where branded, I
Yeah,
literally
yeah.
feel like if you want to play branded right now, like your full-time job, like you're not playing Yu-Gi-Oh, you're playing branded.
Oh yeah, no,
You know, like
definitely.
you are in the trenches. If you want to enter an event with the branded deck right now, I think you probably, not even to say like it's more difficult per se. I think there's a greater amount of
You have to
knowledge
work.
required, if that
You
makes
have to
sense.
work for your wins more often, and I think that is a
I was
big
gonna
one.
say
And
a 14-year-old topped with a 2021, 2022 branded deck.
Well, no, yes, that deck. I think I don't even I don't remember who I discussed this with, but I think it was a couple months ago, maybe like 2 months ago. I was just like watching people play at like locals, and somebody drew a hand that was just like all the cards that like I remember playing in the branded deck like right when it came out. It was just like, like branded opening, branded fusion, like branded in red, like Aliber. It was literally just like 5 branded cards that I knew what they all did, and I was like, wow. And it might have even had like patchwork too, and I was just like, wow. In 2020, right when this deck came out, this was literally just, this hand is game. Like this hand is not doing anything super crazy. It's making a Mirror Jade. It's setting up branded in red. Like it's probably, I don't know, branded, whatever the other, like maybe it's even setting like branded Retribution or whatever the other one is, branded Banishment. Like who knows? It's doing something, like, and then like this guy just proceeded to just put all of his cards into like new cards. Like he summoned a Grand Guignol and like I think he sent a Gimmick Puppet probably, and like fused all of his cards away into like nothing. And his entire 5-card hand just turned into like 2 interactions. And I'm sitting here like, what is going on? And I created this fictitious scenario in my head where the reason Branded wasn't doing well is everybody was just trying to do too much. And if you just entered with exclusively card for card the branded deck that was good the week after it came out, maybe you would do better. And to see it maybe happen is kind of funny. But I truly do think people, when they play branded, are trying to do too much sometimes. Obviously, these cards are good.
Like
but...
Mirror Jade, Mirror Jade is probably Mirror Jade is doing more into like the cash format than a lot of people were giving credit for, right? Like even if we ignore like expulsion, like pre-ban or like sanctifier or anything else, like you can just get hard carried by like Mirror Jade, ad libitum, like branded in red, just floating a bunch of cards and picking off their board, right? Like that's just sort of like where we were at, and
I'm gonna disagree on the first thing you said, but agree with everything else. I think Mirror Jade actually was at its worst with Kashtira because you can't activate it if Rise Art's on the field.
You cannot activate it at all.
And Fenrir is going to banish it face
like,
down.
If you go first and you just like casually make your board, you are likely doing enough with like 3 points of interaction.
Oh, sure.
From, like, the base level, right? Like,
sure.
Just into like a lot of these decks, like obviously ignoring the ones that just like summon 58 times and nothing matters. Maybe not cash necessarily, but just being able to pick off 3 cards, potentially 4 cards, right? So like Guardian Chimera, Mirror Jade. Like that has to just be good enough. And that's just what it was doing, a year ago, and it's just doing the same thing now. Like,
yeah, that is. I do think Guardian Chimera is just an insane card.
Well, that's weird. That's why the Chimera deck is good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can do it in branded too. Like it's the same thing.
No, I mean, well, like obviously, like the Chimera deck, but like namesake is going to be the deck where it shines the most, and I think it truly does.
I mean, not really. Like there are no synergy. Like it I know the cards are called Chimera, but they don't actually have any synergies with Guardian Chimera. Like really, like you can make it on your opponent's turn because you can fuse it.
I mean, in-engine quick fusion.
Yeah.
That
well, so does the other deck. The other deck
They
also
do.
has
The other
that.
deck loses to like DD Crow and like Bystials that are in the format, right? Like that's why.
But
Doing
also,
the
like,
generic
Guardian
stuff probably
Chimera
doesn't
is a
matter.
beast, which also is used as a material for
Mm.
the other Chimera cards because they require beast monsters.
So
Which is
even
important.
if you don't have like poly, I guess we have like the option where if a Guardian Chimera is made, we can just feign something, right, and then get it off the field and make the big guy and have all of that stuff online. That's like interesting as well. But yeah, I guess like enough about this one. I think we sort of went on about Desphere a lot when it was probably wasn't necessary, and we were just talking about how Yu-Gi-Oh is ignorant. I think
Yeah,
there were some other
yeah.
product releases that maybe we can go over real quick that I don't think we touched on prior. I guess like the tins, we had some world premieres, not super duper relevant. How did you guys feel about the tins this year? From like a, let's say like from a reprint perspective, maybe from a secondary market perspective as well. I thought they were pretty average compared to last year's tins, but the promos are definitely a step in the right direction, and I'm glad they're back.
They always need to do promos. They
Yeah.
could have done better with some of the promos. But yes, promos are always welcome in tins.
Yeah. I truly think Enlightenment Paladin and Salamangreat Blaze Dragon are like borderline insulting promos. But
Yes.
You're
other
not
than
gonna say that Deco Talker is insulting?
No, but other than that,
I
it
feel
should
like
just been Deco Heat
Deco
Soul
Talker
or
is
something.
actually insulting.
Yeah, that's probably true. Deco Talk, yeah, that's true. But other than that, I think they were fine. I think the issue I have as far as like the reprints go is you look at these cards on the secondary market now, and most of them are just like worth almost nothing because they are the same rarity as they were in their packs, and they're cards that like aren't even played right now, right? Like the biggest one for me was looking at like Regulus and just being like, wow, this card is $2. Like that is crazy. And it's like, on the one hand, yes, it's good that there are more affordable versions of these cards so everybody can play decks they want to play. On the other hand, when you need cards to have value or else the game doesn't make money and the game ceases to exist, it is depressing to look at some of the prices of these cards and the prices of these tins and go, oh no, like this is maybe not quite where we want it to be. I think it's interesting that Drua's Worm is so expensive, and I think I think that like shows me where these tins sort of like need to go in the future and why the earlier ones, in my opinion, seemed so much better. Is they didn't reprint cards in the same rarity, or if they did, there was like, I think in the 2020 tins, there was literally like one card. I think it was Extravagance was the only card printed in the same rarity that it was in the actual packs. And when this like the
same rarity, like same rarity.
When like it is the same. It is the same. It like it is the same.
It's not the prismatic whatever that they like to call it.
Well, it is, but it's like to the casual perspective, it is a secret rare card becoming a secret rare card, and they'll complain about it on Twitter, and here we are. But when you look at like the second most expensive or third most expensive card is Drua's Worm, because it is a rarity upgrade. It is a great card played in the current format that was previously a super rare that did already have value, so that's one thing. And then you gave it a rarity upgrade. And then now it is one of the better performing cards in your set. And like Fenrir also got a rarity upgrade. Yeah, should Fenrir have probably not been an ultra rare to begin with? Probably should have been, a secret rare. I mean, from what other perspective should have been a secret rare, but here we are, right? Where it's like, sure, we're getting the Fenrir. I hesitate to call it an upgrade because it already got an ultimate rare, and that's a whole other issue of how these cards get printed and whatever happens and what happens with that. But which we can talk about the next OTS pack in a little bit, because Europe just posted something on their Twitter about that, which confused me to no end. But I think the biggest issue I had with these tins is that they didn't reprint arguably two of the three. I would say I'm gonna go 2.5 of the most like sought after cards from this from the year, which were the Tier Elements Planet, uh, Divine Kurakara, and Ultimate Slayer. I don't think Ultimate Slayer would have been worth that much, but it would have been something. And Kurakara is still an expensive card,
Ultimate
and
Slayer's
Plan
also
is an
seen an
expensive card.
uptick of play lately as
Yeah,
well. It's been
well,
in a lot of side
that
decks.
card was not legally activatable while Arise Heart was legal.
Yes.
So I'm, that's one of those cards. That's one of those cards where like, oh, Arise Heart's banned. I guess Ultimate Slayer and Forbidden Droplet are legal to play again. Like you're allowed to put them back in your deck. Have fun. But I think that's my biggest, probably my only issue actually. I really think if the tier elements, if the tier element cards were just in the tins as secret rares.
Yeah, I'm pretty upset that my Chairlight deck still has common cards in it.
Yeah, if they just put like Scream as a super rare and like Solic as a super rare, and then they put the monsters as secret rares, and then they moved some of the secret rares that were already secret rare like to other slots, that's where I think I would have preferred to see them. But all things considered, I'm gonna say the promos were step in the right direction. The card quality is pretty high, I would say, in this set. Like in general, sometimes it just feels a little too late. Where you look at stuff like Illusion of Chaos and you're like, this card has, this card came out almost 17 months ago, right? No, more, almost 19 months ago. Yeah, like this card came out like 19 months ago and just like isn't quite played anymore, like it's just a different environment.
So quick question, I don't know if you guys remember at all, but what is like the most on release, like in the first couple weeks,
mhm.
um what card was the most expensive reprinted in one of the tins?
Like in the more recent tins
And
or
yeah, sure, let's any of the tins in recent years since
um
they started doing this like
I
the
remember Apple.
Prosperity.
I remember, yeah, prosperity was pretty high, probably still the highest that any of these cards have been.
So it's not that. So, I already thought prosperity. Besides prosperity, what was it probably?
Appaloosa was good. Borreload Savage was good. IP was really good. Obviously, those are just very good cards in general. But those
Mhm.
I remember being pretty high.
The biggest issue is like I feel like week one is sort of more skewed, and then it's like maybe more long termish, right? Where it's like I think Prosperity Droplet sort of held a pretty reasonable lead, and then that's before we get into like the other reprints, right? Like IP was printed, and then shortly after you had Gold Series come out with two printings of IP, right? Like that's just like ridiculous.
Right.
So we sort of maybe have to look at those sort of circumstances too.
Oh, okay.
Otherwise, IP would have just been a $50 card for
Yeah, that reminds me.
that pocket.
I think my biggest issue with the tins, this is I like if I have to boil it all down, this is my biggest issue is the tins are like a looming threat, right? At all times. You go like, well, this card will be reprinted when the tin for this
Will,
comes
huh?
out.
Ugh.
And then every single time the tins come out and there's like 3 cards they just don't reprint for like just baffling. Okay, I think the most baffling one I have of this one is why was Exo Sisters Magnifica not in the tins? Can you give me a reason for that?
No idea.
I Martha was in the tins.
It's weird to put some of them and then not.
No, every single Exo Sister card except for Magnifica is in the tins. Every single one. And I don't. This isn't even like it came out later. This is like it was in Difo, and then Martha was in the next set, and Martha is one of the very, very, very few Power of the Elements cards in the tins. Right? There's no Sprite. There's no Tier Elements. And then Magnifica's
I
not
don't know,
there.
and then but like logically, right? When you look at stuff like that, you assume there's going to be a product where something
Magnifica
like this
will be.
pop
So
up.
that's the other. So that's part one is the tins existing makes every single card you buy feel maybe even a little bad because you know they're going to get reprinted. I don't think it makes the first sets feel bad. Like Battle of Chaos, nobody felt bad buying Battle of Chaos for, Illusion of Chaos. I need this card in my deck. Oh, it's gonna get reprinted in the next year's tins. Yeah, in 20 months it'll be reprinted. Like that doesn't matter, right?
Exactly.
And
right.
then, but the last set of the year, maybe you go like, ugh, these are gonna be in the tins with the set that came out, 10 months ago, and it's like, but then you have cards that don't get in the tins for baffling reasons, like Magnifica. Then you have cards like the adventure cards that are reprinted
what about this?
already and then
Yes.
go in the tins. And then you look at them and you pull an adventure card in your tins and you go, oh, well, I already just pulled adventure cards from Battles of Legend. I don't want these,
Well, let's also look at the Sword Soul stuff as well, because I think that was another big one.
That's
too.
similar to Martha, where they pulled Sword Soul out of the tins and then put it in something
Mhm.
else, and it just feels really disjointed and confusing, and I don't like. It's just,
But it's like
it's
the
really
Sword Soul
weird.
stuff was also the last set of
Yes. Yes.
that year.
And then it wasn't in the
we
tins.
rotate over, and then it's
Yeah.
just like not in the tins, but it's in Maven.
But it's in,
And then we look at the product schedule for this year, and it's like, well, where did the other cards go, right? Like,
yeah,
where are they going?
literally.
But
where did they go?
we have a very heavy January, right? Like that's going to be the big thing. It's like we have Millennia and all of that stuff. And who's to say we won't get some of this stuff in the Rarity Collection? Like probably not.
Yeah,
it's going to
probably
copy
not.
the OCG list, but
yeah, like, do we think Magnifica is going to be in Maze of Millennia? Like, literally, I don't.
No, but yeah, that's
probably
what
not.
I mean. Like it's genuinely confusing to try and
Yeah.
figure out like, well, where is this all going to go? And I think that's good in a way, because it's better than devaluing literally every card, right? By like reprinting stuff into the ground.
Right,
But at the same time, stuff like that is more confusing when it's like archetypal.
What I don't
But
like
maybe
about
that makes
it,
a little more sense when it tends to be like an archetype as opposed to like quote unquote staples, right? Like generic stuff should be reprinted more often, but like archetypes can remain, in like a realm of like not exclusivity, maybe just like maintain a little bit more value. And we just like reprint them all in like a group.
It just creates situations like Magnifica, where Magnifica was $2. Do you know how much it is now?
Yes.
I haven't checked, and
It's
I
like
don't want to.
$15.
That's insane.
Yes,
Well, that was
like
the same thing with Fateful Adventure.
Fateful
as
Adventure.
well.
Yes, I know. And they do this. They do this every time. Is when they reprint every expensive card in an archetype, and then don't reprint the cheap one. And then weird, you just create a demand for the cheap one. Now the cheap one quintuples in price, and it's like, how many times we had to teach you this lesson, old man? like we surely this time. And it's like, but
And
the
then
thing,
I'm sure Konami has their justification with Power of the Elements as well.
no, see
but
that one
it's
can sort of get because they had the unlim print.
Brian. Unlim print.
I
Is the only
know,
thing
I
that
get
can,
that.
Yeah,
I can accept that one, which is why I cannot accept why is Martha in the tins and Magnifica isn't. Like, where did Magnifica
that's
go?
the crazy one, right? Yeah, like why wouldn't you do it the other way around?
That's what I'm saying. Is why wouldn't you do the other way around?
Anything Power of the Elements in the tins, it should have been the more generic cards, right? Like Garura.
Garuru is a good one. Ultimate Slayer. It should have been
would
Garuru,
had
Ultimate Slayer, Kurakara.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
And
I
then
agree.
like you can do whatever you want to tier and sprite, as long as it's reprinted in the next like 6 months. But it won't be.
Yeah.
So like now we have to wait until January when there's like either going to be a list. So like that's the other thing I guess you can sort of look at here as well. And this is something Jeff will probably think, no, they're not. It's like, what if their intention was, why would we reprint Sprite and or tier cards? They're likely just going to end up getting hit anyway.
And then they didn't get hit. And then we're left even more baffled, right?
Well, who's to say, like, they didn't think, okay, we'll test the waters, and then maybe go for, like, Q2, broadish, like, Q1 2024 for, like, a reprint if these cards aren't doing anything in the current, like, format. Or, like, the last pocket of 2023. Maybe that was their intention, but like Q2 seems too low. Like we're delving into like WCQ season to want to reprint a deck that has been around since 2022.
Yeah.
And just try and get it back into rotation. It's like, well, if it's not doing anything, then you're probably losing your chance.
Yeah, if it's not doing anything, why would you reprint it? And if it is doing anything, you have to ban it, right? Like that's
exactly.
yeah. It feels weird. I agree.
So we're really just sitting here for like a waiting room. There might just be like the craziest reprint set ever with multiple competitive decks, or they just
when that
ban
happens,
literally
why do the
everything.
tins exist? If like
That is
right,
that is that is a big
that's
one.
that's
I
the
feel like
issue.
this one was a big like miss, and I don't know. I don't know like how they messed it up this badly. There could have just been like character cards. They could have just like not put in the tins and just put actual playable cards. Last year's tins were crazy, right? However,
Last year's
you
tins
can't.
were, and people will still say, well, even last year's tins didn't retain value that much. Last year's tins, I will defend. I will die for their honor. I think last year's tins was a great idea, and I like them a lot, and I think they worked out fine. There were a couple weird ones.
2022 Yu-Gi-Oh product
but
schedule was very good.
yes, I think I agree with that.
Yeah.
Mostly. Yeah.
Well, if you ignore what can we ignore? Ghost from the Past 2.
We ignore Legendary
Duelist.
We ignore Legendary Duelist 9.
Yes, okay, that's a big one too.
And then
Yeah,
everything
I'll give
else
you
is
that.
probably fine. Yeah. I agree.
Yeah, sure. So like we have
Which put
Power of the
put
Elements,
bit
we
and
have
droplet
Dabble.
in it to try and sell it.
And then we put Droplet in the
that is
tins
the
anyway,
funny one.
haha.
Yes, their foray into
And Basil Legend.
reprinting playable cards. Crazy.
It was literally like, we'll put droplets in that set to try to sell it, and then we'll put it in 2 other sets also
Oh my
to
God,
make it
it's
worthless.
so funny.
Ryan, random trivia.
Uh-huh.
What do you think the most expensive card is from Megatins 2019?
2019.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I I really wouldn't know. Give me
Wait, hold
one
up.
second.
Can we count the promos?
Well, it's not gonna be a promo, definitely. It's not gonna be
Could be
like
Nibiru.
Nibiru. It's not gonna be Nibiru.
Could be.
2019 is crazy. I truly don't know. I know what 2020's is now, unless it changed in like a couple days, but I don't know what 2019's is. I'll be honest with you. I can't.
So
even
I was
think
looking
of,
through
like,
all of them, and I was
Yeah.
very surprised to see that the most expensive card at a whopping $16 is Heritage of the Chalice.
That is crazy. I would not have guessed that. That's insane. I love that though. That is crazy. Wow. That's crazy. That's insane, actually.
That is quite funny.
That is very funny. Wow. I'm pretty sure, is 2020 still Unchained Abomination's Prison?
Yes,
Or
it is. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought. Yeah. Oh well. And that's also like, the random residuals of just putting all the archetypal cards in the tin is when the archetype pops off 3 years later.
Yeah.
Now you're in there.
Dude, I'm still going through it. Like I was going through bulk to find cards for my deck for like a regionals last weekend, and I'm just looking and I'm just like, wow, there are more Unchained cards here than like I knew I had, just because I opened tin in 2019. Oh, sorry, 2020. And I'm just like, this is ridiculous. Yeah. Oh, what's that? More Abominations Prisons. Yeah.
Yay.
Yeah, but it's such a weird thing, right? It's just like, I guess to summarize my thoughts on tins in general, it's weird when you have a guaranteed reprint set and then you also put cards that are in your guaranteed reprint set and you reprint them in other sets in addition to the guaranteed reprint set. And I feel like I say this I feel like I tap the sign every time. But when this happens, you devalue both of your products. When you put the adventure cards in Battles of Legend and then also put them in the tins, you make the cards from both of them worth nothing, and it devalues both of them. And that's the problem. And again, not just from a secondary market perspective. Sometimes it legitimately feels like you get punished for opening, like if you bought Battles of Legend and you got adventure cards, then the tins come out and you buy some tins and you get more adventure cards that are the exact same cards you just got in your set 3 months ago. It can feel like you're getting punished for buying products. You're just getting cards you already have.
That is a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh lately. I feel like a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh right now is, wow, I bought this product and now I got fucked because it's terrible and
well, it's not
rarities
even.
are.
I'm not even
rarities are skewed. It's just it's an ongoing
not even
thing
from
lately,
a
I feel like.
necessarily. I don't even want to look at it exclusively from a value perspective. Just from like I think it just feels bad to just pull the same cards over and over again.
Yes,
Because
absolutely.
when you already have them, you can't do. I understand a trading card game, but it's like that you're just like it's like you're creating more
It is a
work.
trading card game only in name, not
Yeah.
in yeah.
Like
But yes, they continuously put
you
things
just
in
go to
other
locals, you
things
trade your
and
extras. It's like, yeah, but then they also have extras of them. When all 30 people at the locals have 10 Fateful Adventures because you printed it so many times, no one wants them. And it's like, I don't know. That's the big one is I like the tins in concept. They've definitely been executed better in previous years, which makes me look at them and be like, I know you have it in you to execute it better. Also, I don't want to, at the risk of just spreading misinformation on the internet, Bowden, do you know what the deal with Labyrinth is?
I don't know, but from what I understand, you
Again, at
cannot
the
get
risk
that
of spreading
card.
misinformation.
No. So I'm gonna give you the information that I've got based on myself and others opening,
Okay,
in the realm of probably hundreds of cases of tins,
Sure.
right?
Okay.
There were pockets where we would not pull. I would say probably from like maybe 50 to 60 cases, we did not pull a single copy of Labyrinth.
Yeah.
And on when we did like start pulling them, they were European print.
In North American print cases.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
just that's
Yeah.
baffling. I do remember that they said that they opened like 100 cases and did not get a Labyrinth.
Oh yeah, dude.
When
No,
it's
dude.
like, that's
I was like, I was
crazy.
30 deep. I was 30 deep pulled, and this is a crazy part. I was opening some packs that had 4 secrets in them and no ultras. Furman opened
Oh,
and
whoa.
pulled 4 ultras, no secrets, but he would get like double promos. I'm like, okay, cool. And like even with my additional secret rare pulls, there was still no labyrinths. So I'm kind of sick with that. But yeah, maybe that card has no right being $2 on TCG. It should probably be like a $10 card.
Yeah,
but,
just because it doesn't exist? Question mark.
yeah,
Yeah,
I mean,
maybe
if you
just
pull an American print labyrinth, like you're probably rich. Yeah, just one of those obscure ones, right?
Yeah, that is just like a really weird, just a weird distribution issue, I guess. That's like just okay,
Yeah,
sure.
like, well, you can never truly tell like what's happening in situations like that. Is it like, oh, we forgot to put labyrinth on the sheet, and now we had to get EU people to send us copies, and it's like who knows what's going on, to be honest. But
Yeah.
there's a lot of rumors regarding like printing and stuff like that.
Yeah, of
and
course.
like maybe we're seeing that with like the quarter century rares and all this other one. Someone's saying that that's the reason why European print has ultra Pharaoh rares, whereas like American print has secret rare Pharaoh rares. There's something in terms of the technology.
I forgot that
or like
happened.
some proprietary thing. Yeah, so like you might see some interesting stuff maybe when it comes to the 25th anniversary Rarity Collection. So
Yeah,
we
maybe.
might see
Yeah.
some key differences with like how the rarities look, and like maybe the technologies are different, similar to
Because
the Pharaoh rare.
Because the EU product is also just more expensive, right?
Yeah, we don't know what's going on.
We'll see how that goes.
Yeah, so
That's one I don't want to speculate too much on that one.
I'm waiting to see. I've heard some rumors of like it's this expensive because we are getting it from America.
Yeah,
and
maybe.
like who knows if that's just cope or something.
I've definitely heard
we'll
that.
see.
Yeah.
So
But
like
I mean, I've
all
heard
of
it
the
on Twitter,
Europrint-
not from an actual.
Exactly. Well, yeah.
I've definitely just heard people post about it on Twitter.
all of the European print purists might be in shambles when this set pops up.
Yeah, maybe.
Who knows? All of the American print chads might be winning. So that could be good.
Perhaps.
But yeah, we'll see. I think that's definitely a big one. It's just like the inconsistencies across like printing in different regions is also very funny. Like European print tends to have more damaged cards, whereas like the US print ones just a different card stock entirely, and you just don't know what's going on. Yeah, so that's something. But hopefully there's like a bit more like uniformity, right? You don't want to open a pack and get a damaged card. If you open a European OTS pack, you are probably getting
your cards
damaged
probably
card,
damaged,
which is very depressing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if you open an American card, you're probably getting a misprint at some point.
Or it just doesn't have foil on it.
Yeah, that's always a good one.
Yeah, but
I call them Easter eggs.
So I think, I guess this has been going on longer than I thought for sure, but I think last thing I kind of want to touch on is the Rarity Collection, and we don't know exactly
I'm
what's in it
really
yet.
excited for it. No,
I
we know
am
what's in it.
too. I'm
We know
optimistic
what's in
for
it.
it. I'm
I'm
right. It's
excited.
probably just the Japanese set. Yes, I agree. It's
Yeah.
like 99%
So, like,
just that. But
I'm excited, but okay, where do we stand on? If you look at the market price for a lot of these cards, like the high end, so you look at Forbidden Droplet, Ultimate Rare is down significantly.
they're all down,
Well,
all
not
of them.
significantly. Like everything is down quite a lot.
Yes.
And I'm trying to work out if this is a good or a bad thing, or if it's just like panic selling. Because I feel like there are a lot of things. Like Ryan, we didn't touch on the Kurakara ulti reprint. I think that was something you wanted to yell
yes,
about
I
real
did.
quick.
Very
But that
briefly.
sort of delves into this. So the European Twitter gave us some previews. So they posted a video, and this was yesterday. It was very funny, and it's just OTS 23 or whatever it is, right? Coming out October 25th, and Kurakara is now an Ultimate Rare alongside Enemy Controller and then another unknown Ultimate Rare. And Ryan has something to yell about regarding this because this happened with Zeus for him as well.
It's literally
Yeah, go
okay. And now it just adds to the no Kurakara and the Tins conspiracy, where it's just like, okay, so I have a huge issue with OTS Ultimate Rares just being Starlight like already, and it's so bizarre. And the rationale is something along the lines of like, another, like, cards that are printed in high rarities can get printed in high rarities again. And I understand that and I agree with that and that's fine. But it's like, so like these, I mean, maybe I'm a little jaded, but I literally look at this and I go like, this card literally just came out. I know it didn't just came out. I know it's been a year, but it still is just like, it's been 1 year. Like, this is not even a card that I think is like that crazy. And it just wasn't in the tins. And I think about it like, if the reason it wasn't in the tins is because they already decided it was going to be in the OTS pack, that helps literally no one. Because the people that have the high rarity cards already have this card Starlight. The people that can afford Kurakara, which is an expensive card, already have the secret rare. And the people that can't afford them and need a budget option were denied it because it wasn't in the tins. And then you just have this awkward ultimate rare in this middle ground that I don't think exists. Like, I don't think this fictitious collector that wants the high rarity cards but not the actual high rarity cards like truly exists. And it's weird to put it in a set they don't sell anyway. Like, I don't get it. I'm sure there's something at work, some witchcraft at work here that it makes sense in some manner. One thing I will say is the OTS packs are printed at a frequency now that even the ultimates existing do actually drive down the price of the original prints now. So I actually think we will see Secret Rare Kurakara go down in price. I do think that is how that wasn't the case historically with cards like Thunder Dragon Colossus, where like it being ultimate was just like, oh well, now it's just has a higher rarity and the secret rare that's expensive is just still expensive. And it's like, well, yes, because that's what that is. But now there will just be people at your locals that just have 3 Ulti Kurakaras in their binder just because they won a couple of locals, and I do truly believe that it will, because we saw it happen with Fenrir, right? We saw Fenrir go down a lot after the OTS pack. Because the OTS pack put a lot of Fenrirs in circulation, right? So it is bizarre how the ultimates end up sort of almost being like reprints now, which just makes it even weirder when now you have like a high rarity version of a card being so overprinted that it drives down the price of the card, and it just baffles me tremendously. But the Rarity Collection, I am super excited for it. I agree. I think it's going to be, I'm glad they're trying this because Japan has had a set like that. This is like the 4th one they've done of this, I'm pretty sure. Like, they've done this many times and they've always been reasonably successful, as far as like, this is a set that I see like, whenever we would like shop, when we went to Japan, right? And I'm trying to think about this. there were a lot of these cards just like available, and some of them were pretty expensive. And we've seen, just looking at, like Japanese prices of Japanese cards, after some of these sets come out. Like I remember the last time I really, really looked at like the Japanese secondary market was after the release of the Rarity Collection that had the alt art of their IP. And like the Starlight alt art IP was like one of the most expensive cards they'd had in a long time, right? Like it was really expensive if you remember that.
Mm.
Um,
On that note, my friend from Japan said the Lost Rarity Collection is probably one of the like greatest appreciating products in Japan in
yes,
quite a
sure.
while, and he
That makes
bought like
sense.
quite a lot. So they apparently some of these stores have so many, and they just give it out for their tournaments. Like they'll have like their monthly big like CS championship, and the
Hmm.
pricing is just like that Rarity Collection. It's just aged so well.
Yeah.
I'm actually trying to find the post where he broke it down, but he explained it to us. He was like, "Yeah, this is just really good." I'm
Yeah,
like, "Yeah, cool."
and I, obviously on paper this set looks crazy, crazy. The only fear, the nagging thought in the back of my head is, we look at how many of these sets now are worth so little because simply of how over ordered they are. And we see these stores in California or these stores in New York or whatever, and they just buy like 1,000 cases of these sets, or more,
Yeah.
right? And then when multiple stores are buying 1,000 cases of like mid sets, and then it drives the price so down, down of the sealed product, then the singles still are kind of expensive for whatever reason of the good cards, right? But then how many cases of this, if you're a store that buys 1,000 cases of every core set, how many of this are you buying? Are you buying 10,000?
Yeah.
Like
Yeah. I can only imagine how
like
many. Yeah.
and it's like, and if you do that, do you have the capital to hold any of it? Like if you're spending double, triple, quadruple your normal price for a set like this, you probably can't afford to hold them. You probably have to sell them for whatever margin you can, because that's a lot of capital that's being tied up for that. So I'm just afraid that there'll be so much of it in circulation that somehow it just brings everything to the floor. And if these cards are printed to this frequency and it reduces the price of everything, and if all of the cards in this set just become worthless, I'm actually curious if this set gets so overprinted that all the cards are really, really, really inexpensive. Do you think we see the old expensive, like, do you think we see like the previous expensive version of these cards go back up? Like, if this set is so tremendously overprinted that we see quarter century like quarter century versions of these cards like Nibiru being cheap, do you think the OTS Alti goes back up because it's the only one that isn't, like grossly overprinted? Or like, is that, you don't think that's real? I kind of wonder.
Um. No, I feel like it'll kind of just stay. I think it'll kind of just be normalized, honestly.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah. I when I look at the things right now, like the difference between like Starlight Zeus and Ultimate Rare Zeus, I don't know what the difference is, but I imagine that the Starlight Zeus is quite a bit more than
Starlight
the.
Zeus is like, I think I want to say maybe like 6 times more expensive than Ultimate,
Yeah,
something like that. Yeah,
yeah.
I want to say it's around that. Yeah.
I don't know, dude. Like I think this set had to be done. Whether it was done correctly, I'm not sure.
Sure, I agree. I agree. It
That's
had
why
to exist
I
probably.
liked last year's tens a little more in terms of like the method that they're trying to take, right? Like it helps stuff still maintain some amount of value. Whereas like with this Rarity Collection, like so much will be opened that demand will be met, and then there's just like this big sea of high end, and it's like, is it really high end? And like, how many people need
Also,
other ulti copies of like Imperm, or like the quarter century copies of Imperm or Droplet or something? It's like, I don't know. Maybe this works better in Japan, maybe not here, but like only time can tell. Like realistically.
I'm not even that worried about the overflow of high end. To be honest, I'm worried
Well, not
about
even like the overflow of high end. It's like, will this product actually be worth
the
opening?
high end.
Is
Yeah, we'll
the
see.
yeah,
I'm more worried
it's like how
about
much being open,
what
because you're gonna
happens.
have all of the cards in like 8 different rarities.
I was about to say what happens when all is said and done, when the dust settles, right? When all is said and done.
When the dust settles,
And
man.
Baron is a bulk super rare for 18 cents, right?
Yeah.
Like, what are we doing? You know, that's the
No,
one that I think is so
that's fine
crazy.
though. That's how the game should be. I think
Sure,
that's completely reasonable, but I
sure,
don't think it's set like this is the correct way to do it. I think
sure.
the way that you should be doing it is not sets like this. I think sets like Mavens did quite well in attempting to do it.
Yeah,
Just because of like
I
how
agree.
that set sort of functioned, right? Whereas this set is like, here's everything 5 different times in 5 different
Here's
rarities.
everything and every rarity you could ever want. Never ask us for
Mhm.
anything ever again. Like
Mhm.
that is what it feels
Yes.
like. Yeah. Like if you don't buy this set, you just don't buy, you know what I mean? Like this is one of those where we talk about how, like we've been playing for long enough that like staple card prices have fluctuated so, like I remember back in my day when, Judgment Dragon was $180, and it's like kids these days have it so easy, all their cards are so cheap. It's like I think if the low rarity versions of some of these cards, if the super rare Ash and like super rare evenly and like I think evenly's in here, and like imperm, if these cards, if like the low rarity versions go down to like $2 and people still complain on Twitter, I'm gonna lose my mind. Like I'm literally gonna
Well,
lose
it's
my
Twitter,
mind.
and that's the place where everyone will find something to complain about.
I'm going to lose my mind if people are like, how can Ash still be $3? I'm going to lose it. It'll be my Joker moment. I just like I don't know. Oh man. All right. This was a lot longer than I thought, but I guess we've had a lot to catch up on. So these have probably been a lot of our thoughts like marinating for quite a while. So
Yes.
it is more reasonable, but yeah, so as negative as maybe we've been on some of these products, I do hope the Rarity Collection, like I am excited for it. I am gonna open, a decent amount for myself, which I've not opened a product for myself for the intention of enjoying it in quite a while. So I am
I think this is going to be a very fun set to open.
yes.
However, for Europeans or European equivalent, which is Australia, this set is very expensive, and I don't know if the costs will justify cracking this product.
Yeah.
Which is where I'm sort of like 50-50. If everything is US print, as was rumored through the internet, then potentially, like it could just be better for me to, open it in North America as is tradition, but we will see.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I like in my mind, this is a don't crack, get singles really, really cheap. You can definitely get all the staples that you want for dirt, probably post week 1, because so much will be open.
Yeah.
Gamer's choice, as always. I mean, James should probably sponsor us at this point. I feel like every time it's always just like, yeah,
I will
Gamer's choice.
say
300 copies
I
of
would
pod.
I will say definitely just actually check out Gamers. Like they'll definitely have the
Yeah,
best
quite
prices.
literally.
Like I will
James
say
will
just
have-
for real, like
James
actually.
will have so many copies of a card, and
Oh
that
my
will set the
god.
like,
James
the
will have a
standard.
throne. James will be able to make a throne
Yes.
of these like out of these.
It's gonna be ridiculous. And you know that, so that's the other thing I think we haven't touched on, and it's something that I always have to bring up with the tins. When I'm like, trying to deal with someone regarding cards, stuff like that, and it's always like, okay, so you have this card for you want 10. I can give you this much, and this is the price, and it's going to be this price until someone buys 300 copies from James, because I know James is not going to change the price on an $8 card that he has 300 copies of. So this is going to be the set number. Like, you know what I mean? Like this is the standard. The bar is set. Nothing matters,
Of
right?
course.
And that's going to be the same for so many cards from this set. And like that's the other thing is like there's no FOMO. You quite literally will probably be able to get stuff because it's going to be so much. Nothing matters. Singles would be my pick. Sealed product. Keep it sealed. Just don't look at it for a while. You'll be fine. That's not, if you're a store, you have to crack it.
Yeah, if you're a store, yeah, I think if you're a store,
if you win like a display at locals, I probably wouldn't open it. I'd probably just put it away, and it might appreciate quite well, but we'll see.
Yeah.
Maybe it just won't. It'll be Mama Tia. So yeah.
Did
So we
Mama
wrap it up
not?
now.
Did the sealed of that not do well? I don't remember. haven't looked in a
I think
while.
it hasn't gone up actually.
Okay,
I think it's
maybe.
just like
Interesting.
filler. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, interesting. Maybe because of the sleeves.
Yeah.
Where are we gonna put all these mama sleeves? Anyway.
Yes, where?
I threw mine away.
Okay. All right. I think that's all I got. I don't know if you guys have any more any other closing thoughts. This was
I think we've covered everything and then some.
literally
And then
everything.
if we missed anything, we can cover it next week because I'm pretty sure we're all home.
Yeah. Yep.
Well, next week also we should know a little bit more about the Testina cards and the sets being
Oh,
open
I
on
forgot there are
YouTube.
new Testina cards.
Yeah.
Oh
So
God.
My favorite.
Be able to talk
Testito
about
card.
how they somehow mess up the rarities for AGOV and be mad, and then the Testina cards,
Yeah.
which
Hey,
I don't know, maybe
they did release the rarities for the horse cards in that video, right?
yes,
Maybe.
one of them is I mean the good one that we knew was going to be a secret rare, and then a bad one was a secret rare also.
And the sarcophagus is an ultra, right?
Yeah,
That's
sarcophagus and all the card. Yeah, when you play one of yes.
Yeah, yep. But like, still, like, good, right? It's fine.
Well, why would you want the one?
I guess.
I mean, it's fine. Yeah, whatever.
I mean, look, you make the whole deck ultra and above. It's gonna have you can have a nice quarter century rare, Horus Core something. I don't know.
I guess that would be a reason to make it ultra rare, so there's a quarter century version of it, right?
Yeah.
But still, I mean, making one of those ultra rares that are extra deck monsters that everyone has to play is always super weird to me. And I'm gonna go into another tangent. We've already been doing this for 2 hours.
All right, that'll be for next
time, guys.
Yeah, literally, that'll be next time. Thank you all for watching. Yeah, this was a long one. I will attempt to put some timestamps in on this one, but this one was way longer than I thought, and I will definitely, that will be more work than I anticipated, but we'll see what we can do. Yeah, thank you all for watching, and if you have any thoughts on definitely should have mentioned this earlier than the end of the 2-hour video, but if you made it this far somehow, do you think we're all dumb for our thoughts on the tins, or do you have similar thoughts, from if you're a less competitive player that doesn't have as much of a collection, built up over the years, like how do these tins actually like work out for you? I'm a little curious to get that
and
other
like
perspective.
I guess, are you excited about the Rarity Collection?
Yes, and and what does the Rarity Collection mean to you? Yeah, that'll be, I think next one I'm gonna lead with that question actually, because I do want to hear that response. So,
what if the greatest rarity was the friends?
The friends we made along the way. Yeah. What if the real Rarity Collection was the friends we made along the way?
We're done. We're done. Good night.
Jeff hungry.
I'm starving.
Oh my god.